And what we need now is the commercial creditors to also come in. That means the asset managers, the banks. We're dealing with the poorest countries in the.
That was World Bank President David Malpass speaking earlier on Bloomberg. Coming up here, we're going to talk with Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey. That's next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's BABBEL.com.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, makes innovation happen. The university helped biomedical engineering professor Tara Alvarez launch a startup that may revolutionize vision therapy.
Our startup through NJIT is called Ocular Motor Technology. We create virtual reality vision therapy in a head-mounted display. So it's gaming, and basically we're sugarcoating the therapy so that children and young adolescents don't even realize they're doing therapy. To accomplish this, we need biomedical engineers, which are here on NJIT campus, computer scientists, artists, people that are into story development, and then we're collaborating with a lot of the large pediatric medical centers. This idea of a startup culture is extremely important to not just NJIT and the National Science Foundation, but also to the U.S. as a societal whole.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting.
For the friendships, for the fresh air, for the space to grow, for the knowledge, for the sport, for the outdoor education, for the wide horizons, for the academic excellence, for the future. Unleash your child's education at West Buckland School, a co-educational day and boarding school in beautiful North Devon. If you're moving to the southwest for a better quality of life, this is education without compromise, in what the Good Schools Guide called a gem of a school in an exceptional location. To see for yourself, find us at westbuckland.com.
You know that feeling when you get more than you expected? Like discovering that the box of chocolates has a whole other layer underneath, or scoring extra poppadoms with your takeaway, or joining Tesco Mobile and finding out you get the latest phones and 99% UK network coverage. Yeah, that moment feels good, right? Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
99% 4G population coverage indoors and outdoors across UK.
People's Postcode Lottery's 30k a day is back. £30,000 will be won every single day by players in the July draws. That's £30,000 for every player in the winning postcode. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 18th of June to play in the July draws. PPL managed lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus conditions apply. Play responsibly.
Emma, the UK's most awarded mattress in 2019. Try it out for 200 nights risk-free. Made in the UK. Go to emmamattress.co.uk to order now.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
sending spices to novice cooks,
airbands to kids,
desks for home offices,
delivering the goods,
shipping footballs,
fruit trees,
and dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Sources tell Bloomberg Perella Weinberg Partners, the investment bank founded by Joe Perella and Peter Weinberg, cutting its workforce by 7%. Stocks are extending the rally as investors cling to optimism for a quick economic recovery from the pandemic. S&P 500 index heading toward a 3-month high, up another 34 points today at 3114, up 1.1%. The Dow is now up 405 points. That is a gain of 1.6%. Nasdaq's up 54, a gain there of 0.6%. 10 years down 23.30 seconds, yield now 0.76%. Gold down 1.7%, $16.99 the ounce. And crude oil, West Texas Intermediate, we'll call it flat on the day right now. Barrel of crude WTI $36.80. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Balance of power continues. He's working from the basement. Here's David Westman.
I'm relegated to the basement. Exactly right, Charlie Pellet. Thanks so much. Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey was scheduled to give a speech yesterday to the Boston Chamber of Commerce about how her office is dealing with COVID-19 cases. But she changed that speech, instead delivering an impassioned plea for fundamental change to deal with what she called 400 years of systemic racism in our country. We welcome now Attorney General Healey back to Bloomberg. Welcome, Madam Attorney General. Great to have you with us. I've read the speech. I say it's impassioned. I didn't get to hear it, but boy, it reads off the page. Tell us how you are addressing the question of the racism that is giving rise to this civil unrest across the country.
Well, I'm trying to recognize it for what I think it is, and that is, it's sort of embedded in society and in this country, and it has been really since well before the founding, 400 years. And I think at this point, we need to acknowledge it, and we need to own it, and we need to fix it. I think we need to use this opportunity when we see people taking to the streets and demanding justice, and yes, unfortunately, we see some violence. We need to recognize the pain in that and the legacy in that, and the opportunity to do something about it. And that's why I spoke to the business community yesterday, because I really do feel that we're in this together, and we're never going to go back to the way we were. We're going to go forward, and let's use this time to build justice and equity into our system in a much better way. It'll make all of us better.
Never going to go back, and I think we would have to hope that that's right, but it isn't right unless we make it right, because let's be honest, we've had different instances even in our recent history. I go back all the way back. I was around in 1968, but there have been a variety of instances since then when those of us in the majority community say, oh my goodness, are you upset? I wasn't focusing on that. And then we sort of talk about it for a while, and it goes back to the same way. What can be different this time?
Well, I think a few things are different. One, we've had this whole COVID pandemic, and that's only exacerbated and further exposed the real racial disparities that exist out there, healthcare disparities, as you see more black and brown people getting sick and die. But I think it's also heightened the level of anxiety that we all feel, and it certainly has meant that we are not going to go back to normal as we knew it, all right? So you put that alongside what's happened specifically with respect to some high-profile race incidents, and I think it's all coming together right now. And it's coming together, and the fact of the matter is we must reform our criminal justice system. We have to reform centuries of systemic racism in housing and economics and employment. And we also in the media have to protect residents when exercising their right to free speech and demanding change. But being out there and talking to so many people, I feel like this is different and it's not going away. And I want it to go well.
What's the situation in Massachusetts, in Boston, around Massachusetts, with respect to protests, any violence and things like that? I believe that you were at a rally last night, were you not?
I was at a rally in Franklin Park. We had tens of thousands of people there. It was peaceful. Later on, there were people who were, again, continuing to exercise their right to protest, who stood in front of the police headquarters and in front of the State House. But, I saw moments with police talking to protesters, really talking. I saw encouraging signs where, at the police headquarters, you had police who were taking a knee, and the protesters cheering. And, I think it's been really an exercise of great restraint by law enforcement here, well planning by the activists and organizers of these protests. And while we've seen some intense moments on the street, and we saw some violence the first night, we're not going to let it detract from, I think, the broader purpose and understanding here in Massachusetts. Leaders in law enforcement united, showing solidarity, empathy, understanding with the black community. We need to listen to the black community, understand their anger, and support them. And that's what we need to do across this country.
I want to come back to your speech, if I may, because you didn't just issue a call to action, but you gave some ideas at least about what action it should be. And you started, frankly, with essential workers that tend to be disproportionately people of color as a practical matter. They have certainly been hit harder than anybody else by the COVID-19 with cases and even deaths. What should we be doing as a society for those essential workers? And as you point out, it goes well beyond our healthcare workers. It certainly includes them, but it goes well beyond that.
Right. I mean, I look at our grocery store workers and others who've been on the front lines. First thing right now is we need to protect their safety with PPE and actually protect them from getting sick. But, we see that so many of these people, including people in our gig economy, so many people are employed in our gig economy, lack benefits, lack the kind of safety net that they need. We need to prioritize quality childcare for these folks as well. So starting with workers is, I think, a really important place to begin, David. I do think we need to go beyond that to address issues of environmental justice, to just address the disparities in our healthcare system and the like. But, I did offer some concrete things to people yesterday that they can do. First thing is educate yourself about the history of race and racism in America. There are a lot of books, podcasts. Go out and get educated on this. Speak out when you see racism or you hear somebody make a casual slur in your circles. Buy black. I mean, right now, our minority-owned businesses are really, really suffering. Support them. I suggested people, instead of ordering takeout from your neighborhood, go order from a minority-owned restaurant and support them. For employers, David, I think it's really important. Employees of color are hurting right now. Bring together your employees, your entire workforce. We did that last week, and it was powerful. Improve wellness within your workspace. People of color in leadership positions. It's not simply enough to have a diversity and inclusion committee. Make sure that your organization, your company, actually has people in positions of power in leadership within your organization. So these are some things that are all, I think, very doable for all of us. And every one of us has a chance to contribute to bringing about the kind of change that we need in our society.
You mentioned healthcare a couple of times, and you addressed that as well. And it's interesting to me, clearly we've seen the evidence of the disparity in healthcare from this crisis, but you tie it back in, actually, to the digital divide, which we've seen with education as well, and the possible role of telehealth.
Yeah, I think technology is just really key. We've seen, just here in Massachusetts, how we've been able to use telehealth to reach more people of color, immigrant communities, and serve them. We've seen the use of mobile trucks and mobile healthcare in the communities. That involves a lot of technology as well, where you're taking care outside of a health center or a hospital and bringing it right to a community. What it also means, though, is that we've got to have the broadband and the internet and the infrastructure, even within homes, to make sure that people have the technology to be able to take care of those capabilities. So I think it's a real opportunity in a way to address some of the healthcare disparities that we see.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Attorney General. Great to have you. That's Maureen Healy. And I'll leave you actually with the words she left us with at the end of her speech. Yes, America is burning, but that's how forests grow. That does it for Balance of Power for today. This is Bloomberg. I'm David Weston, and thank you so much for joining us.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
At Lloyds Bank, we know that money is a concern for a lot of people during this time.
You just put pressure on yourself all the time. You just want to do your absolute best.
You automatically then think,
it's my fault.
Yeah, this is because I've not
done X, Y, Z.
Yeah, I've not raised them right.
Whatever's playing on your mind at the moment, Lloyds Bank, in partnership with Mental Health UK, can offer you support and advice. Visit lloydsbank.com/mentalhealth.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Looking for your daily fix of NFL news and analysis?
In that. So we had to blow it up at the Super Bowl predictions instead.
Look no further than the Pick Six podcast, where CBS sports writer Will Brinson gets you up to speed with what's trending in the NFL that day, so that you're always in the know.
Yeah, it's pretty revealing of Brinson's methodology for predictions. When he gets mad at people for predicting good teams are going to win the Super Bowl or good players are going to win major awards, that's how you wind up.
Search Pick Six on TuneIn to listen.
With millions of podcasts dropping new episodes all the time, how do you keep up with all your favorites? TuneIn makes it easy. Simply head to the home screen and find your new episode section to see the latest additions.
Who says you can't have a laugh while getting serious about America's pastime? On the daily podcast Locked On MLB, comedian and baseball fanatic Paul Francis Sullivan talks about each team, each pennant race, and everything else in the game. From rule changes and controversies to baseball cards and stadium food.
For those of you who are not familiar with me or the old show, I love to obsess over baseball. I'm talking baseball over the Super Bowl. We had a TV showing the division series during my wedding.
Search Locked On MLB on TuneIn to listen today.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Business Week. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine. Plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Mazur and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Live from New York and from New Jersey, streaming also on YouTube. It is Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020. And Jason Kelly talking about so much that's going on today, and yet we looked at the markets, and man, they're just off and running.
Yeah, I mean, I was tempted to say grinding higher, but it's beyond a grind. I mean, there's real enthusiasm, and I just saw a headline across the Bloomberg that referred to it as exuberance, and that certainly is what it feels like.
Irrational or otherwise?
Well, we'll see. I think that's a big question that we need to be asking every investor and all of our inside experts that we're going to be talking to. Before we get to that, though, let's get a look at what that trade looks like from Charlie Pellet.
All right, we'll cut right to the numbers, give you the story in just a moment. Right now, the Dow up 406, up 406 points. That is a gain of 1.6%. The S&P up 34 points, higher now by 1.1%. And NASDAQ is up 58. That is a gain of just about 0.6%. So we've got stocks advancing as investors cling to optimism for a quick economic recovery from the pandemic. The 10-year down 23/30 seconds with a yield of 0.76%. Gold down 1.6%, $16.99 the ounce, and crude oil now higher by 0.6%, $37.03 a barrel. Briefly, Rolls-Royce, the aircraft engine maker, cutting 3,000 jobs across the UK, and Google says it'll be holding an 8-minute, 40-second moment of silence today, 1 p.m. Pacific, in memory of George Floyd. Also says it's giving $12 million to organizations fighting racial injustice. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thanks so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. This portion, it's brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the 6th straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit Commonwealth.com to learn more. Carol?
All right, so let's get into today's trade. Let's bring in our team right now. We've got Dave Wilson, stocks editor at Bloomberg News, on the remote access from New Jersey. Sarah Ponczak back with us as well, cross-asset reporter at Bloomberg News, on the phone from Florida. Dave, let's just set the terms of this rally. How broad-based?
Well, it's pretty broad at this point. And, you know, what's interesting is what we've seen this week seems to be playing out again in terms of the kinds of companies that are leading the gains. You've got financial stocks at the forefront among the S&P 500's 11 main industry groups. And then you see industrial companies, energy producers, raw material producers, the kinds of companies that tend to do well when the economy is doing well. And, you know, you hear that, it's like, what? I mean, we're in the middle of a recession. What the heck is going on here? It's more about what happens from here, perhaps, than anything we're going to see, you know, for this quarter or for the next couple of quarters. And it's consistent with the idea that some of the beaten down areas of the market have really been leading the way lately. I mean, you look at what's been going on, you know, with these industry groups in 2020, and you just see, I mean, it's right there, you know, in terms of what's at the bottom of the rungs, so to speak, on the ladder. I mean, energy stocks right down there, financials as well. So it's kind of a continuation of renewed love for some unloved areas of the market here.
All right, so love in the market, Sarah Ponczak, but I have to come back to this notion that if we look out of our windows, if we read any headline, and especially as we think about over the last 10 tumultuous days, how does this add up? Like, help me understand this.
It really is pretty amazing. And every time I ask this question of investors I speak with, they always go back to the Fed, saying that we really do have an unprecedented amount of liquidity and stimulus in the system, and possibly that is the only reason. Also, I often hear that this is a recession that is likely going to be very short-lived. Typically over history, the stock market has bottomed 3 to 5 months before a recession ends. So if we actually do move out of this depth of the recession that was due to the coronavirus, maybe that is possible. However, I do want to mention that even though in the market today we are seeing these unbelievable gains, I mean, I look at the S&P and the Dow, both up well over 1% right now. There are a couple investors who have been bullish for a while now. We spoke with them back mid-April or so, not long after the S&P 500 had moved above that 20% mark that demarcated a bull market. There was still this raging debate over whether we were in a new bull market or it was a bear market bounce. And many of those investors we spoke with back then that were optimistic early on are now starting to get a little bit worrisome. Peter Cheer of Academy Securities in particular, looking at the action today and saying it looks like bears are capitulating left and right, and he's starting to think about actually bringing down his risk.
Well, here's the thing that concerns me is that markets are forward-looking, right? And so they're looking ahead to the recovery and maybe what they expect the recovery to be, and I get that, but I just do wonder if there is too much enthusiasm about what the recovery looks like, Dave.
Well, and that's the question. I mean, where do we go from here? You know, given that you've got, economists talking about the economy hitting bottom in the second quarter. You go through our numbers in terms of S&P 500 earnings estimates. They're supposed to hit bottom in the second quarter. And then, you get smaller declines in profit in the third and fourth quarter. And by next year, we're back to 10% plus earnings growth, double-digit profits. But there's a long way between here and there, no question. Right. The course of the coronavirus is one of the great unknowns. How things sort of evolve from here in terms of, all the protests and everything else is another. So, there's a lot to get through, and people are choosing to take the optimistic view. Given the extent of the declines in stocks that we saw in February and March, now, does that ultimately become justified in the end? That's the question hanging over the market here, arguably.
All right. Well, we thank you both so much. Great context on a day where we continue to try and synthesize all this, figure out what investors are thinking amid a very unsettled world. Sarah Ponczak, cross-asset reporter for Bloomberg, joining us on the phone from Florida. Dave Wilson, stocks editor. He'll be back with us in just a bit with his chart and stock of the day. Carol?
So there's our backdrop, right? That's the investment backdrop, the market run-up that we have actually been seeing now for, more than a week or so, and certainly quite a bounce off the lows. And I feel like, Jason, the conversations that we've got to have are, really what is next? And especially here we are 12 weeks in, 1 week in from what happened in Minneapolis. And we've got some great voices to talk about, whose responsibility is it ultimately to change things? Because I do wonder, in good times, everybody backs off. There's no problems in the world. It's only when things are exposed does it feel like we have a lot of conversation. So do these conversations ultimately change into actions? Richard Edelman's going to be back with us, head of the global communications firm Edelman. Jay Lippman is co-founder and president of Ethic. They are a sustainable investment advisor. And so we're going to talk to him about how, we can bring about some justice for those that have really been hurt.
Well, we're also going to talk to the mayor of Topeka, Kansas, Michelle De La Isla. And it's important to understand, and I think we're going to keep coming back to this time and time again, that this is largely an economic story and a story of economic inequality and a story of economic unfairness. It is systemic, it is structural, and so the question is, what do investors make of that? How do they direct their money? What do companies do about that? And maybe most importantly, and certainly we're seeing this play out day in and day out, what do local leaders do about that? What can they do on the ground? So I'm really looking forward to some of the conversations.
And I just have to say that, as a backdrop again to all of this, it's certainly the markets, and we're watching that and that optimism. But there's some revealing statistics and several stories that are on the terminal and in the magazine this week that remind us of those being impacted by the virus and the inequalities that have been overturned or revealed again. And sometimes you got to go to the numbers to really understand the depth of a problem.
Absolutely. All right, let's quickly do the Bloomberg Business Week bite of the day. It's one number that tells us a lot. Today's number, Carol, it's 50%. MoffettNathan analyst Michael Nathanson predicted on Tuesday the coronavirus outbreak will slash box office revenues, we like going to the movies, by half this year. The pandemic is now poised to weaken the longtime status of movie theaters as destinations for first-run movies. The numbers are bleak. A significant bounce back he's calling for in 2021.
Right.
But that may just be because there are better movies coming out. It's a bleak picture, to say the least. All right, let's get down to D.C. Nancy Lyons is there with some world and national headlines. Hey, Nancy.
Hey, Jason. The FBI's Russia investigation is back in the spotlight today as former Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein testified about the origins of the probe, and he defended his decision to appoint a special counsel to take it on.
I was concerned that the public would not have confidence in the investigation and that the acting FBI director was not the right person to lead it. I decided that appointing a special counsel was the best way to complete the investigation appropriately and to promote public confidence in its conclusions.
Some Democrats have criticized today's Senate hearing, saying the issue should not be top of mind for lawmakers at the moment. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper is explaining Monday's walk with President Trump to a damaged church across from the White House. That visit has drawn criticism for the way demonstrators were forcibly moved out of the area so the president could have a photo op.
I did know that we were going to the church. I was not aware of a photo op was happening. Of course, the president drags a large press pool along with him. And look, I do everything I can to try to stay apolitical and to try and stay out of situations that may appear political. And sometimes I'm successful at doing that, and sometimes I'm not as successful.
Esper also says he does not support the deployment of active duty forces to confront protesters, as President Trump has suggested. Well, President Trump is refuting reports he was moved to a secure bunker in the White House when protesters clashed with police. In a Fox interview, he says he went there for an inspection and was there just for a tiny bit of time. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
In a world pandemic, wild theories abound. This is beginning to percolate, but there is one source that's expert, honest, and current. Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene.
You try to avoid the losers.
Jonathan Farrow.
We've got the potential for the value trap.
And Lisa Abramowitz.
What's the risk for financial stability?
Bloomberg Surveillance. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. And now, watch us on Bloomberg Television.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
COVID-19. On days when it seems there are nothing but questions.
What about the pandemic emergency purchase program in Europe?
What's the medical side of this?
We try to ask good ones.
How long until we have an answer on what drugs can help us fight this pandemic?
How do you think this has the potential to rattle markets?
Does that mean we should shut down?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
It's a rather controversial question being asked.
Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
If knowledge is power, the Bloomberg term
for the friendships, for the fresh air, for the space to grow, for the knowledge, for the sport, for the outdoor education, for the wide horizons, for the academic excellence, for the future. Unleash your child's education at West Buckland School, a co-educational day and boarding school in beautiful North Devon. If you're moving to the southwest for a better quality of life, this is education without compromise in what the Good Schools Guide called a gem of a school in an exceptional location. To see for yourself, find us at westbuckland.com.
People's Postcode Lottery's 30k a day is back. £30,000 will be won every single day by players in the July draws. That's £30,000 for every player in the winning postcode. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 18th of June to play in the July draws. PPL managed lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus conditions apply. Play responsibly.
Emma,
the UK's most awarded mattress in 2019. Try it out for 200 nights risk-free. Made in the UK. Go to emmamattress.co.uk to order now.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Uncle Ben's rice, 250 grams for just £1. And our Butcher's Selection chicken breast fillets, only £3.40 for 650 grams. Why not whack it in the wok? At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
Ready for some straight talk on what's happening in the MLB? On the Barstool Sports Podcast starting 9, Dallas Braden and Jared Carrabis cut through the BS to break down the league the way they really see it.
Yeah, we're continuing our little mini-series of college baseball coaches in addition to bringing you major league players from throughout the league. If you've been listening to Starting 9 for some time now, you know that we've had a big leaguer on every single episode for probably 2 years now.
Search Starting 9 on TuneIn to listen.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Balls over a man, into the end zone,
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There are going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
Pass to the 5! Touchdown! Search classic game replays to listen for free.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
He does! Fabry wins it!
To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business
From
Flash.
Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Want to begin with an update out of Minneapolis. 3 additional officers to be charged in the George Floyd case. This according to the Star Tribune. The paper says other ex-officers will be charged with aiding and abetting murder. Also, the newspaper says the officer charged will face elevated second-degree murder charges. Again, developing story. More details coming up right here on Bloomberg Radio. Stocks extending their rally close to the highs of the day. Right now, we have got the S&P up 37, a gain there of 1.2%. Investors clinging to optimism for a quick economic recovery from the pandemic. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 451, up 1.8%. NASDAQ up 71, up 0.8%. 10-year down 23.30. The yield there 0.76%. Gold down 1.7%. 16.97 the ounce. And crude now up 0.6%. West Texas Intermediate crude back above $37 a barrel. 37.03 right now on WTI. Again, recapping equities higher here. S&P up 38 at 31.19, up 1.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week, and we will keep an eye on those headlines coming out of Minnesota. As Carol said, we're expecting official word, now basing that on reporting from the Star Tribune, and that reporting actually being amplified by Senator Amy Klobuchar as well. So those headlines continue to cross the Bloomberg. In the meantime, a lot of folks, us included, are thinking about what it's going to take to get back to to the office. We're hearing that a lot here in the tri-state area. I mentioned a few minutes ago that New York City is starting to reopen as of next Monday. Neighboring Connecticut is also thinking about this a lot. Let's get into that with Dr. Eric Schott. He is the founder and CEO of Semaphore. He joins us on the phone from Connecticut. And Dr. Schott, it's really nice to talk to you. I'm fascinated by your background and your experience in both the clinical and research and also the commercial. Help us understand what back-to-work testing looks like, especially when you're looking at Connecticut.
Yeah, well, great to be on. So what it looks like is we need a more holistic solution, not just focused on testing, but really seeking to understand the context in which each employee is existing, like whether they have symptoms or not, who they're being exposed to, and so on, in addition to the testing. And we kind of wrap that all together to provide guidance to employers on whether a given employee is low enough risk and not testing as positive and should be allowed no problem back into work versus somebody at high risk and maybe should not be coming in, should stay remote.
So this is what you guys are doing, and I'm reading something from the Stanford Advocate. I mean, you guys are increasing the capacity for your new coronavirus testing program to at least 10,000 tests daily, up to 20,000. And we're talking about the test of whether or not you've got the virus, but also antibody testing, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And a lot of that volume driven by, working with the state of Connecticut, Governor Lamont, and the progressive strategy they have to really, get people back to work. So proud to be helping those guys along.
And so, I mean, I guess, and I love the fact that you're looking at it very holistically. Eric, I mean, just as sort of rank and file employees and, folks who are commuting and things like that, as human beings and obviously folks who have pre-existing conditions and are more at risk, I think there's a different set of circumstances. But what should the everyday person who's thinking about their office be? Is there sort of a checklist that we should be thinking about in terms of our own thresholds and our own sense of safety?
Yeah, in fact, it's interesting. In the dozens of employers we've talked to about these go-back-to-work strategies and use of testing, a lot of this is employee-driven, like the employee wanting to understand how safe are they going to be at the workplace, are they going to be exposed, are they going to carry something back to the household where they may have vulnerable others. So we're seeing a lot of this driven by the employees. Some of the employers, like they need individuals back to be productive. They want them back in the workplace. And so what we're seeing is the employees really saying, well, make us safe if we do that. So there are a bunch of guidelines to the employers about how to, maintain social distancing within the workplace and so on. There's the kind of symptom tracking that you want individuals coming in to be taking. So increase awareness in the employee on whether they're not feeling well or they've been exposed outside of the work environment. All of that through the kind of digital engagement we have can be reported and cataloged and used to assess risk in addition to the testing. So again, it's trying to cover as many variables as possible while once you're in the work environment, again, just smart, maintaining social distancing, wearing a mask if you're in public areas or exposed to other individuals and so on.
And I want to press you on one point because you brought it up, and I think it's so important, which is this idea that if someone, and I certainly trust my employer, I work for a great company, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on its air, but, the thing that I think many people worry about is exactly what you said, the sort of inadvertently bringing something home. And is that just something, is that a risk we're just going to have to live with? And how much of this goes down to kind of that individual responsibility and maybe the in-between things that are happening between work and the workplace and vice versa?
Yeah, it's a bit complicated because it has to take into account, to what extent does an employer actually need you working in the office. So one of the things we do with the employer groups is helping them assess, is an employee really needed to come back in or can they be remote? And if they fall into higher risk categories, i.e. they have individuals at home who are more vulnerable, elderly parents living with them, immune-compromised individuals, and so on. So that's number one. Number two is age. Age plays a significant role in the severity of response you may undergo if you get infected. So all of those parameters are taken into account. Education is a key part of this, and it's helping everybody understand the risk. To what extent are they needed in the office? To what extent can they remain remote? And based on those, various thresholds are set for the different risk groups.
All right, we're going to continue this conversation because we have a lot more questions and want to glean some more insights from Dr. Eric Schott. He is the founder and CEO of Semaphore, helping us understand what back to work looks like from all these different perspectives, Carol.
Yeah, and it's complicated, and it's going to mean different things for different people and certainly for different organizations. And I thought that was really key what he says. It comes down to what extent does an employer need you at work physically within the building. And I think I'm seeing those discussions, hearing about those discussions, certainly at our firm and elsewhere. So we'll continue the conversation in just a moment. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week on this Wednesday. Carol Masser, Jason Kelly. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. The coronavirus isn't finished with the U.S. labor market. Bloomberg Economics says a new wave of cuts could be on the way, with nearly 6 million white-collar jobs at risk. They include supervisors in sectors where frontline workers were hit earlier. Stocks are climbing for a fourth day on hopes for a quick economic recovery from the coronavirus pandemic. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 432, the S&P is up 37, the Nasdaq is up 73. The Wall Street investment bank Perella Weinberg reportedly is cutting its workforce by 40 as deal-making slows. It's not the first. Rivals including Evercore and Lazard are also tightening their belts. Federal prosecutors have charged Pilgrim's Pride CEO Jason Penn with price fixing. He's among 4 current and former chicken company executives indicted in a long-running government investigation. Pilgrim's Pride is down 11%. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers. With COVID-19, so much is unknown.
For the friendships, for the fresh air, for the space to grow. For the knowledge, for the sport, for the outdoor education. For the wide horizons, for the academic excellence, for the future. Unleash your child's education at West Buckland School, a co-educational day and boarding school in beautiful North Devon. If you're moving to the southwest for a better quality of life, this is education without compromise in what the Good Schools Guide called a gem of a school in an exceptional location. To see for yourself, find us at westbuckland.com.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus symptoms and testing. If you have any one of the following symptoms, a high temperature, a new continuous cough, loss of taste or smell, you can now get tested. Do not leave home for any reason other than to get tested. Find out how to get a test and how long to isolate at nhs.uk/coronavirus. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
At Asda, we've provided 3,500 care homes with priority access to delivery slots, and priority shopping hours are open to our care workers. We're also donating 250,000 face masks to care homes. Asda, we're all in this together. Please show ID for priority shopping. Check asda.com for times.
We're all in uncharted territory looking for ways to support our communities. At Dell Technologies, we're making sure small businesses have the right tech solutions. Dell Technologies advisors are here for you, helping small businesses stay connected and productive while working remotely with Windows 10 Pro and Microsoft Teams. We're standing by you every step of the way. Call us today on 0800 169 1745. That's 0800 169 1745.
Who says you can't have a laugh while getting serious about America's pastime? On the daily podcast Locked On MLB, comedian and baseball fanatic Paul Francis Sullivan talks about each team, each pennant race, and everything else in the game, from rule changes and controversies to baseball cards and stadium food.
For those of you who are not familiar with me or the old show, I love to obsess over baseball. I'm talking baseball over the Super Bowl. We had a TV showing the division series during my wedding.
Search Locked On MLB on TuneIn to listen today.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
I'm Carol Massar, along with my co-host Jason Kelly. We're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Eric Schott, founder and CEO at Semaphore. And I've got a great question, or I think it's a good question, that I want to ask him, especially with all these hopes and expectations around testing, but maybe is there another option he'd rather see? So we'll get into that in just a moment.
That's a good tease for your big question. Can't wait.
My great question. I'm a little subjective. All right, let's get back to our top stories and another look at that rally. Hey, Charlie Pellet.
Hello there. No question about this. We are at the high of the day right now with the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, all surging, call it exuberance, taking over. Stocks extending their rally as investors cling to optimism for a quick economic recovery from the pandemic. Here's where we stand. The Dow up 460 points right now. That's a gain of 1.8%. S&P up 37, higher by 1.2%. NASDAQ up 68. That is a gain of 0.7%. 10-year down 24.30 seconds. Yield now 0.76%. Gold is down 1.8%. 16.97 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude now up by 1.1%. 37.23 a barrel. Protests across the country have health experts concerned about a possible spike in COVID-19 cases. Lauren Sauer is an assistant professor of emergency medicine at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. She was interviewed this morning on Bloomberg Television.
Over 75 cities have seen widespread protests and demonstrations and some rioting and some looting. And these events are places where the virus can spread easier. So you see places where yelling and singing and chanting or coughing and sneezing from tear gas or pepper spray, all of those things can further spread virus or cause transmission events. So, and then on top of that, all of these are large gatherings. So we know that while these protests are important, they also are going to be transmission events, and we have to be ready for that.
The Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies. A once obscure ETF tracking airlines soared past $1 billion, largely bolstered by day trading. The U.S. Global Jets Exchange Traded Fund, yes, the ticker JETS Jets, posting its 64th consecutive day of inflows today, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. Jets up now by 7.3% among some of the airline names. In fact, the four biggest airlines in the U.S. United Airlines Holdings up by 11.7%. American Airlines Group up 6%. Delta's up 7.6%. Southwest up by 5.9%. And that's the Bloomberg Business Flash.
It is indeed. Charlie Pellet, thank you so much. Our guest at this hour, Dr. Eric Schott, founder and CEO at Semaphore, a patient-centric predictive health company. He's also Dean for Precision Medicine and Mount Sinai Professor in Predictive Health and Computation Biology at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. As we'd said, he's had lots of education and lots of schooling. Dr. Schott, it is nice to have you here with us. And you're talking about, the work that you guys are getting more access and more testing. Given your druthers, would you, as a member of the medical community, prefer that people ultimately just stay home a little longer?
Yeah, I think we're seeing, we're already seeing that. Some of the timelines on when governments wanted to see people back to work and people wanting to be back to work, that kind of getting delayed, let things ride out a little longer. The numbers are definitely going down. But I do ultimately think that testing is sort of a core part of, a key part of evidence, along with other parameters that sort of assess whether somebody does have active infection or whether they've been infected and may be immune.
And Dr. Schott, I know that this is top of mind for you because you have been involved in the collection of a lot of very sensitive data. How do we protect privacy amid all of this?
Yeah, it's a great question. The digital solution we sort of provide to an employer that includes both an employer portal where they can upload what employees do they want to have back in the workplace, so who's eligible. And then for the employee portals that we engage in clinical testing all the time. So this technology that keeps, we're dealing with HIPAA, personally identifiable health information, like all of that. We use state-of-the-art, encryption technologies and so on. And many of the employers, like once these tests are run on employees, whether they're positive or negative, the employers often don't want to see that information. They don't want to take in what's medically happening to the individual. So we have the ability to shield that information, to guide employees who test as positive into the right channels of care. So it's employing the same kinds of techniques and technologies that we employ in clinical medicine to perform this kind of testing.
I do feel like, Dr. Schott, that we have been talking about disrupting the medical community for a long time, and I feel like it's been resistant for many different reasons. But I do feel like what's happened with COVID-19 is revealing that we really need to change how we do things. And unfortunately, as a result of that, we are going to be giving up more data, and there's going to be more sharing of data, and there's going to have to be data pools. Is that just kind of our new reality?
Yeah, Carol, I think you've hit it exactly on the head. Like, this is going to be a transformational event. That way, like, there's going to be much more remote monitoring of patients and engagements remotely, a lot more information being transmitted digitally that way. I think increasingly patients and consumers more generally becoming more comfortable that sharing that kind of information, having more information collected on them will have lots of benefits. So there's kind of that risk benefit ratio that employees, consumers always have in mind. And so I think, we'll gravitate towards a new equilibrium that I think will have us, tolerating higher risk and maybe greater privacy risk violations in trade for ensuring we stay healthier and don't bring bad stuff into the home.
Last question for you before you let you go. What do you worry about the most in terms of back to work?
Yeah, I think it's having a holistic enough solution that well enough characterizes what's happening in an individual and what is their risk profile really as we start getting into different types of sample collection to make it more convenient, whether it's saliva and at-home collections. Are those sensitivity and specificity of the test, are they going to be as accurate? So we're like a lot of energy being spent both with the state of Connecticut and all the testing we're doing to assess all of those different parameters we're all learning together. We have to adapt and as we learn and But yeah, it's that we be accurate enough, I guess, would be my...
No, I think that's exactly right. I mean, we had a great story a few weeks ago. A colleague of ours in London did about getting 4 tests, and essentially 2 of them were negative, 2 of them were positive, and so you do wonder about the accuracy, and that ultimately will make a huge difference. Our thanks to Dr. Eric Schott, founder, CEO of Semaphore, joining us on the phone from Stamford, Connecticut. They are working with the state, Carol, to get that state back to work, and I take his point at the end there. It's a really important one because the data are only good if they're real and true, right?
Correct. And it needs to be consistent. We've talked about this, that if everybody's doing kind of their own thing and there's no consistency in terms of collection and then, how you look at it, it's not going to be ultimately useful in the end. So really, really important. All right, let's get back to World and National News headlines and back over to Nancy Lyons. Hi, Nance.
Hey, Carol. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper says he does not support the deployment of active duty forces to confront protesters in U.S. cities, as President Trump has suggested, saying the National Guard is best suited for that job.
The option to use active duty forces in a law enforcement role should only be used as a matter of last resort and only in the most urgent and dire of situations. We are not in one of those situations now. I do not support invoking the Insurrection Act.
President Trump has argued the massive show of military force has quieted the violence. Well, after watching demonstrators pack city streets for more than a week, public health experts fear the lack of social distancing could fuel new transmissions of the coronavirus. Bloomberg's Martin DeCaro reports.
Protesters shouting, some not wearing masks, rubbing their eyes after being pepper sprayed. The scenes playing out across America could lead to unintended consequences.
A week to 2 weeks before we start to see the true numbers of cases.
Dr. Andy Peckosh teaches microbiology at the Bloomberg Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. He says, historically speaking,
these kind of large gatherings have been shown to be able to seed outbreaks.
An Associated Press review found demonstrations have taken place in every one of the 25 U.S. communities with the highest concentrations of new coronavirus cases.
Washington, D.C. is one example of that.
In Washington, Martin DeCaro, Bloomberg Radio.
In a continuing escalation of tensions, the Trump administration says it will block Chinese airlines from flying to the U.S. later this month. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Bloomberg. This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
I've used my ample time indoors to hunt down my odd socks. I found one down the sofa, one in the bread bin, and one in a serious relationship with my cat. But there are better ways to spend your time. That's why Money Supermarket is helping you find cheaper insurance, better interest rates, and easier ways to manage your bills. You can find many more small steps towards money care at Money Supermarket.
Ready for some straight talk on what's happening in the MLB? On the Barstool Sports Podcast starting 9, Dallas Braden and Jared Carabas cut through the BS to break down the league the way they really see it.
Yeah, we're continuing our little mini-series of college baseball coaches in addition to bringing you major league players from throughout the league. If you've been listening to Starting 9 for some time now, you know that we've had a big leaguer on every single episode for probably 2 years now.
Search Starting 9 on TuneIn to listen.
Ready for a one-of-a-kind look at the NFL? On the PFF NFL podcast, Steve Palazzolo and Sam Munson interpret the unique stats of Pro Football Focus to analyze the league, uncover secret superstars, and discuss which teams to watch out for in the next Super Bowl.
Let's talk some football. Let's do it, Steve. All sorts of stuff. We're going to do most improved defenses around the NFL. Solomon Wilcots, our very own. He went into some detail over at PFF.com. Most improved defenses around the NFL.
Search PFF NFL on TuneIn to listen.
Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective podcast.
What about Giannis Antetokounmpo? He is going to be eligible to sign a Supermax extension, which we were projecting to be worth $240 million this summer. Well, if the salary cap drops, and even if he's wonderfully happy in Milwaukee, it may make no sense for him to sign when he can just wait a year and wait for the revenues to recover and then lock in.
Subscribe to Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective.
Search the Hoop Collective to listen.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Are you fully informed on the NBA? On the NBA Hangtime podcast, veteran sports writers Sekou Smith and John Schumann analyze the latest NBA news, storylines, and discussions with guests from around the basketball universe.
Isaiah Thomas joined us here on the Hangtime podcast. Isaiah, good morning.
Everybody's doing well. As you know, my daughter tested positive.
Search NBA Hangtime on TuneIn to listen.
In case you didn't, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Wondering what to play next? Want to know what other TuneIn listeners are listening to right now? Head to the Trending section under Browse to explore the most popular stations and podcasts on TuneIn today. Millions of listeners like you can't be wrong.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Another move higher for the U.S. stock market. Now a 503-point gain for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, up 2%. S&P's up 42. That is a gain of 1.4%. NASDAQ up 80, a gain there of 0.8%. Stocks are extending the rally as investors cling to optimism for a quick economic recovery from the pandemic. Banks leading the S&P 500 index toward a 3-month high. The 10-year down 25/30 seconds, yield 0.76%. Gold down 1.8%, $16.97 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude now up 1.8%, $37.47 a barrel. Again, recapping an exuberant rally underway with the S&P up 41, up 1.4%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Really appreciate that update. Well, among our most read stories on the Bloomberg today is one in the magazine this week. It's about how a decade of progress for women has evaporated overnight because of the pandemic. It was one of those stories we were talking about on our planning call this morning. The story by Shelley Banjo, Bloomberg News is a technology reporter. She joins us, hang on a second, lost my place. She is our senior writer, forgive me. Shelley Banjo is our senior writer at Bloomberg News, wanted to get her title correct. On the phone from Dallas, Texas, she joins us along with Bloomberg Businessweek editor Joel Weber on the phone in Brooklyn. And Joel, I mean, it's a special magazine this week in terms of what you guys are doing. What I love about this story is that you really dig into what's going on, telling the story, the numbers, the stories that really give us an idea of how the pandemic specifically is impacting women.
Yeah, I mean, every issue is special, Carol.
Yeah,
this is one of the stories that the moment we started talking about it, I just said this is supremely important. And, it's been sort of bubbling for a second, like we've seen some of these numbers come out, but this was the first time that we actually really managed to put them all in one place to get a sense of just how dramatic this moment is for women specifically, who have basically shouldered the burden of the pandemic in a way that men haven't. Shelley, as you did your reporting, what were the numbers that really jumped out to you?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, the first thing is definitely the job losses. A lot of times we compare this to what happened in 2008, and a lot of those sectors that were most hard hit were things like housing, construction, areas where a lot of men. And this time around, it's the complete flip. It's areas where women are. So that 55% of the job losses, was a big one for me. And the other number that really stood out to me was just the sheer number of women that are breadwinners in their family. I guess I just didn't really quite realize, how much that was.
And how much of this, Shelley, I mean, this was a stunning story in many ways, although, as both Carol and Joel have said, it was one of these things that probably, if you think about it, was hiding in plain sight. I mean, to me, one of the most troubling aspects of it is that it's going to be a slow slog back to even where we were, much less real progress. Talk to us about that and sort of how hard it may be to really reverse this.
And Jason, one thing to add just there is that last year, women made up the majority of the U.S. workforce.
Right.
For almost the first time in a decade, right? Shelley, think about that in context as you sort of respond to that.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think your point on hiding in plain sight is a good one, because a lot of these things you don't see. I mean, you don't see the hours that women are necessarily staying up later at night to finish, and this kind of burnout potential of, I finish my work for the day and then I'm with my kids and then I'm signing on again to work until 2 o'clock in the morning. And those are the type of kind of burnout that starts to really weigh on people. And I think that could, have some bigger, longer-term implications. You look at all the women that are just kind of bowing out of the workforce, taking parental leave now. That's going to impact longer-term earnings and income for women. And then you look at a lot of women that have no choice. Like they're single women who provide everything for their family, and so they have no choice but to work. And so for them, that means putting their kids in a lot of precarious and unsafe situations.
What's interesting, Shelley, and I think, Jason, back to some of the early conversations we had once we went into, working from home, is that folks thought, this might be helpful to women in giving them more flexibility in terms of working operations, because everybody was at home. We were realizing it was working more effectively than I think anybody imagined, and thought that this might be a boon for women. And it's interesting to see how it's playing out ultimately.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, working from home does save you some time in terms of commute and things like that. But you can't do two things at once. You can't both, breastfeed a child and lead a conference call, which, though I have seen that before. But, you can't do two things at the same time. You can't be two places at once. And so kids, some, I think it sums up in the very first line of the story, which is the reality of the pandemic is someone has to stay with the kids. And so as long as you have kids, someone has to watch them. And in most cases, that's ending up on the women. And what that means is then they can't do their jobs. And so, to me, the frustrating part of this, companies are saying, yeah, we're trying to be understanding of this, but really, I think it takes some greater policies. And so that's something I thought was very interesting from some of the think tanks that I spoke to, which said, this is really a moment where we can either take what's happened and make things worse, or we can take what's happened and make things better and institutionalize some of these things that we've started to do around working from home and paid sick leave and some of these temporary provisions that have been written in for workers right now, and think, how can we actually turn these into long-term solutions? Because what the pandemic unveiled was, we don't have this kind of safety net written into the government, into laws, into the way companies work, and across the board. And so, what can we learn from this? What can we take away, and how can we emerge from this better?
It also revealed, speaking from personal experience here, the importance of school, where you can put kids and then actually, go do your job. Just continuing that thought that you had there, Shelley, about what employers are doing and can doing. Like, what else did you learn about, most effective policies that employers are using during this time?
I think having a policy is effective. So a lot of companies have said, we're behind our employees. We're going to make adjustments. But what I found from talking to a lot of these women are, I don't want to ask for an adjustment. I don't want to ask for a special treatment just because I have to take care of my kids. It's a bad economic time. People are worried that their job prospects are shaky, or that their next promotion might not be there if they're the ones who had to say, oh, during this time, I actually need you to give me a break a little bit. Because for every person who might need a break right now, there are people who don't necessarily have the same kind of caregiving responsibilities that others have. And so I think having a policy in place is something that makes it, streamlines the situation a little bit easier for people to take.
And I think, I'm hearing too from a lot of folks that those policies need to be very clear, concise, understood, and really written out so that people understand truly, what a company is okay with and doing without any repercussions.
Exactly. Followed up on and enforced fairly, I think is a really important point. This is a great story.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And I'm going to put it out on Twitter because the numbers in it to really tell you what's going on right now, and in particular, the disproportionate impact that women are.
And now, this is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying to
standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn. Where do sports, culture, and basketball nostalgia collide? On their podcast, Knuckleheads, NBA veterans Quentin Richardson and Darius Miles sit down with athletes, musicians, and entertainers to get brutally honest, totally unguarded conversations about everything from current events to untold stories from the golden era of sports.
Oh.
You know that, right? I tried to tip dunk off the free throw line one time.
Search Knuckleheads on TuneIn to listen.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Balls over a man, into the end zone.
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There's going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
10, to the 5, touchdown! Search classic game replays to listen for free.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search classic Game Replays to start listening.
It's TuneIn Sports on this day. On this day in 1980, the New York Mets draft Darryl Strawberry at age 18.
Here's Darryl warming up their third pitcher. Well hit to left center field. Out of here, Darryl Strawberry's first Major League home run. Strawberry goes to the opposite power alley with great authority. It's a 2-run home run.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've the final hour of trading on this Wednesday, June 3rd. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, all moving higher. NASDAQ 100 index closing in on a record in the year-to-date column on the Bloomberg. NASDAQ 100 index up 11.1%. S&P up today by 40. That is a gain of 1.3%. The Dow close to session highs, up 476, a gain of 1.9%. NASDAQ up right now, higher by 77, up by 0.8%. Bottom line here, global stocks extending their rally into an 8th straight day. Investors clinging to optimism for a quick economic recovery from the pandemic. Banks are leading the S&P 500 index toward a 3-month high. 10-year down 22.30 seconds with a yield right now of 0.75%. Gold down 1.8%, $16.97 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude oil up 1.4%, $37.32 a barrel. The World Bank says the global pandemic will have a lasting impact on emerging market and developing nations, particularly those that suffer financial crises and are energy exporters. Our Tom Keene spoke this morning with World Bank President David Malpass.
We're dealing with countries that are often on the brink of extreme poverty for tens of millions of people. So that's the focus right now, quickly moving on both the health crisis and the alleviation of poverty, setting up systems that will work into the future.
Investors could face more name confusion this week when Zoom Info Technologies joins Zoom Video Communications on the NASDAQ stock market. Zoom Info, which provides data on sales prospects, is expected to price its IPO today and begin trading under the ticker ZI tomorrow. It will join 3 other publicly traded companies whose names do begin with Zoom. After earnings, Zoom is up today by 5.5%. Peloton shares, they are trading lower today, down almost 3%, after analytics firm Yipit Data said a drop in orders last week suggests an abatement of consumer demand as the economy reopens. S&P recapping up 39, gain of 1.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, let's talk a little Business Week economics. We talked about this story a little bit. We teed it up, I think, rather nicely for our next guest, Yelena Shalecheva. She's quoted in the story that is one of the most read on the Bloomberg, and it's all about what may happen next when it comes to who may lose their jobs in the aftermath of this pandemic. She, of course, is senior U.S. economist for Bloomberg Economics, joining us on the phone from Long Island. And Yelena, I have to say, reading this research and understanding the data that you and your team collected, it is troubling for a lot of our audience in many ways, who I think was probably able to say, oh, okay, well, I'm not an hourly restaurant worker. I don't work in retail. This is going to be much more widespread. And as this continues, we're talking about a lot of higher paying white collar jobs.
Right. And I think the key point here is that a lot of white-collar jobs and a lot of jobs in adjacent industries to those that were hit very hard in the first wave of layoffs are still at risk. So even though we saw a better than expected number in terms of ADP payrolls this morning, another report from non-manufacturing ISM services suggested that things are really not improving that well. And the employment component of the survey was still at a very low level. So that tells me that maybe this optimism about how quickly the job market is going to improve is a little bit premature.
Well, you know what? Can I just say, Elena, it reminds me of like using the SPLC function on the Bloomberg, the supply chain analysis, right? Like you look at a company, but you've got to look, who do they buy from? Who do they sell from, right? Whenever there's a story, it's so much more, wide reaching than just one entity. And that's what this is, right? That if, restaurants are hit, well, there's a whole supply chain, and it includes technology, workers. It includes healthcare, education. I mean, there's just so much that goes into it.
So what we did, what our team did in terms of the analysis, we looked at input-output tables from the Bureau of Economic Analysis to kind of trace the linkages between different industries. So let me give you another example. So a real estate lessor, somebody who rents out those big retail spaces, they are in danger, basically, because a lot of stores are closing, and maybe they're closing permanently. So these companies are at risk of losing jobs. So what we did, we tried to estimate across the whole economy how many more industries are in danger because of that first wave of layoffs that we saw back in March and April. And our estimates suggest that as many as 6 million jobs are in danger because of this potential layoffs in adjacent industries, and also because white-collar jobs are now at risk, given that a lot of frontline workers lost their jobs, and they might not be coming back.
Well, that whole notion of coming back, I guess, Yelena, I want to just emphasize that point, because one of the things that's given, I think, a lot of people comfort so far, and I'm sorry to dwell on this maybe, but I think it's so important, is this idea of like, oh, it's going to come back. It's going to come back. And I do feel like we're starting to get us that some of these jobs, especially the ones you're talking about, don't so easily come back. Is there a delineation that you make between sort of that first wave and second wave? Can you quantify how likely it is in the snapback?
It's very difficult, and of course there are a lot of different factors around it. So yes, things may turn really great, and all of a sudden everybody rebounds in terms of growth and in terms of jobs. But I think it's very unlikely, and even though we have seen a lot of optimistic signs, say coming from auto sales report we saw yesterday, it was better than expected. Another report this morning, ADP, was better than expected. There's a lot of setbacks in terms of how much demand we will have in the industry, in the economy, on the part of consumers, on the part of other industries.
Right.
That might not be coming back in a V-shaped form.
Well, and you do wonder, I think, Jason, I hearken back to our conversation with Margaret Keane of Synchrony Financial, which is a BW Talks in the magazine this week, but who talked about, people who had asked for more time to pay off some of those store credit cards. About 75% of them said, we don't need these deferrals anymore, but they are paying down debt. And, that also goes to, if you're a little bit nervous what the outlook is, you may not do any new spending. You're going to, try and kind of shore up your financials. And what's interesting is one of the data points, more than 1/3 of households making $100,000 per year have lost some employment income since mid-March. And some of them, the statistics show, they're worried about, making next month's rent or paying the mortgage. So, it's really hitting all, aspects of the income spectrum.
All right, Yelena Shaletcheva, thank you so much. You're an economist for Bloomberg Economics. A really nice 1-2 punch, as it were, between our Bloomberg Economics team and our Bloomberg News team, really synthesizing some great data that Yelena and her group put together. And it's all about white-collar jobs not being safe from this pandemic that continues to really wreak havoc, not just from a health perspective, but from an economic perspective as well, Carol. And you also start to think about it in the context of the civil unrest that we're going through and everything going on there that's also laying bare some really, really tough economic truths. We're going to talk about that next hour.
Nothing makes people feel more desperate than financial troubles, right? And either not having enough money to support your family, take care of your family, feed your family, keep a roof over your head. And, it's things that certain aspects of our society have dealt with for a long time, but it's certainly hitting a lot more today. All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Messer along with Jason Kelly. Coming up, we've got our Bloomberg Green segment, our weekly segment, and then we're going to talk about the chart of the day.
We're looking forward to that. But first, let's head down to Washington, D.C. A lot of headlines in the world and the nation today. Nancy Lyons has got them. Hey, Nancy.
Hey, Jason. Well, prosecutors are expected to upgrade charges against Derek Chauvin, the Minneapolis police officer accused of pressing his knee against George Floyd's neck. The Star Tribune is reporting Chauvin will now face second-degree murder, and for the first time, charges will be filed against the other 3 officers at the scene. All of the officers have been fired. Floyd's family has called for more action. Today, Floyd's son, Quincy Mason Floyd, thanked supporters at the scene of his father's death.
I appreciate everyone for showing him some support and love. I thank y'all for that.
President Trump's response to protesters upset over the death of Floyd may be pushing more deep-pocket donors to the Biden campaign. Bloomberg's Amy Morris reports from Washington.
Democratic donors are pouring money into Joe Biden's campaign. 2 fundraisers say it's because of President Trump's response to the demonstrations, motivating donors to give more money to support Biden's bid for president. Biden has set up a fundraising vehicle that can accept much bigger amounts, split between the Democratic National Committee, his campaign, and 26 state parties. Biden's fundraising has trailed the Trump campaign, which has raised $742 million in the past 16 months. In Washington, I'm Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
And a new poll shows President Trump's approval rating slipping. The Monmouth University poll shows a widening of the gap between Democratic nominee Joe Biden and President Trump, with Biden receiving 52% support, while Trump had 41%. On the issue of race, 50% said they had no confidence in Trump's handling of race relations, compared with 29% having no confidence in Biden. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
The tragedy of coronavirus continues. An entire continent is rocked to its core.
This is a wave that's crashed around the world.
Where is the information that's both local and global?
Do you expect loan losses to rise at European banks?
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Do you see any signs of stabilization in the global economy?
Accurate everywhere. Weekdays at 1 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
You're living in a world built on science, political and economic.
You've got to believe the labour market gets hit.
Computer and medical.
Clarify where we are on a test.
It all makes a difference.
What do you think needs to happen in terms of governmental response?
And it's all here.
He expects the virus to peak a long time from now.
Get your science straight.
The hand-washing campaign, is this actually a good strategy?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. You out-salesman to the salesman. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll have the info you need to get more for your future. Go to aceyourretirement.org, because when it comes to speeding past financial challenges, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis,
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care about each other, about our planet, about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. See the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed, retrieve data fast. Scalability, grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity, easy to migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert, control the virus, save lives.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Uncle Ben's rice, 250 grams for just £1. And our Butcher's Selection chicken breast fillets, only £3.40 for 650 grams. Why not whack it in the wok? At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
Are you ready for the realest first-hand take of what's happening in the NBA? On their podcast, All the Smoke, former NBA players Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson bring their fiery intensity to the mic, dishing on the latest news and drama from on and off the court without boundaries.
Half man, half amazing. My friend, our brother, Vince Carter, man. Welcome to the show.
Yo, what's up, man?
What's up, my brother?
Man,
Search All the Smoke on TuneIn to listen.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races.
Looking for your daily fix of NFL news and analysis?
In that. So we had to blow it up into Super Bowl predictions instead.
Look no further than the Pick 6 podcast, where CBS sports writer Will Brinson gets you up to speed with what's trending in the NFL that day, so that you're always in the know.
Yeah, it's pretty revealing of Brinson's methodology for predictions. When he gets mad at people for predicting good teams are going to win the Super Bowl or good players are going to win major awards. That's how you wind up.
Search Pick 6 on TuneIn to listen.
Ready for some straight talk on what's happening in the MLB? On the Barstool Sports Podcast starting 9, Dallas Braden and Jared Carrabis cut through the BS to break down the league the way they really see it.
Yeah, we're continuing our little mini-series of college baseball coaches in addition to bringing you major league players from throughout the league. If you've been listening to Starting 9 for some time now, you know that we've had a big leaguer on every single episode for probably 2 years now.
Search Starting 9 on TuneIn to listen.
A day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We begin with a sports note. The International Olympic Committee says Paris 2024 still focused on holding the Olympics as scheduled. It's an update on Wall Street. In fact, we're very close to the highs of the day. Let's head right over to the First Word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Here he is, working from home, Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Charlie. That's right. U.S. stocks are surging today, helped by a 12% gain in Boeing. Dow's currently up 485 points. S&P's gained 40. NASDAQ climbs by 74. The U.S. 10-year-old at 0.76%. WTI crude futures are up 1.4%. Gold is down 1.8%. And transports jump 300 points. Leaders to the upside in the Dow, Boeing, American Express, and Raytheon, while UNH, Intel, and Walmart led to the downside. After earnings, Zoom Video jumped as much as 7% to a record. And in other news, the Pilgrim's Pride CEO was charged by the U.S. in a price-fixing probe, and Boeing did gain after being listed in Third Point's monthly report. Regarding IPOs, Warner Music Group opened at 27. IPO was priced at 25. And wrapping things up, some of the names reporting after the bell tonight include Cloudera and Guidewire. Live from the First Word breaking news desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Charlie?
Okay, we thank you very much, Bill Maloney. Pilgrim's Pride, by the way, now down by 11.5%. To hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type Squawk, SQUAWK on your Bloomberg. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thanks so much. Well, it's time for Bloomberg Green, and that's brought to you by PGIM, the investment management business of Prudential. Find out how PGIM stands by the clients and communities they serve around the world. Visit pgim.com. Carol?
All right, so in our weekly Bloomberg Green segment, Jason, today, investors are focusing on an interesting idea that we need to think of cars as more than just an automobile to keep selling them in a post-COVID-19 future. Provocative. So let's get more on this from Emily Chasen. She is sustainability editor at Bloomberg News, and she joins us on the phone in New York City. Emily, good to have you back with us. So tell us about this story.
Yeah, so what we're seeing, thanks for having me back, by the way, is what we're seeing is that people are coming out of COVID all over the world, and they're a little bit nervous about using public transportation. So what they're doing is they're looking at cars again, but you haven't been using your car for a while, so you might not buy a new one, right? And before this, everybody wanted people to switch to electric vehicles. Automakers have a lot of models that are coming out. There's low inventory. So people are still buying electric vehicles all over the world, probably because they were still on a wait list that took months to get off. But, yeah, I guess electric vehicles have this optionality to them where they can be more than just a car for people. They can hook up to the electric grid. There's all sorts of software they use. There's the autonomous vehicle stuff. So you could actually think of your car as having an additional value proposition in the future if it's an electric car. And people are sort of trying to unpack that and what that looks like and what kind of future that could make for automakers.
Well, and it's interesting to think about, too, Emily, and this is an area very familiar to you. There's also an element, at least there has been so far, that, buying an electric car sort of says something about you. It sort of says something about who you want to be. And I do wonder, from a lifestyle perspective, how that has changed in your estimation, not just in terms of the dollars and cents of buying a car and some of the infrastructure, but also about maybe the softer side or the harder to quantify side of this.
Yeah, well, people were looking to buy electric cars, probably still were. So it was sort of a luxury good, right? But today, I think Mary Nichols out in California, who heads the California Air Resources Board, said they want to make the whole state in California electric vehicles only by 2030. So electric vehicles are not going to be so rare anymore as they were in the past, which means there's this whole infrastructure around electric cars that really needs to be created right now. Our charging infrastructure is not there yet throughout the U.S. The battery replacement structure is not there, battery recycling. There's a whole system that needs to be created, but there's a lot of cool opportunities. I talked to this investor who said, you could think about your electric car serving another purpose. It could be a generator for your house. There's a whole potential to have 5 days of power from your house, from your car. You could plug your car into your house in the future. And that's not really available yet, but automakers are looking at it.
Yeah, I also do wonder how public policy or government policy can play into this again. We know that when you get incentives. I mean, we replaced some windows on our house years ago because we got a break, because they were going to be, better insulated and so on and so forth. Like, I just do think about how government policy, whether it's a tax break or something, can really induce people to do things. And I wonder if what you're hearing is we're going to need a little bit more of this going forward. And actually, though, can government afford it after some of the spending that they've had to do because of the shutdowns caused by the virus and other?
Well, electric car incentives are going to be really powerful going forward. We saw that, where electric car sales collapsed in COVID, there weren't as many strong subsidies as there were in other places. So where electric car sales continued in COVID, there were strong subsidies. So we're probably going to need more of that, especially because all the automakers are going to have a lot of extra supply. They haven't been selling that many cars lately. They're going to lower their prices. So electric cars are usually more expensive, and they're going to have to try extra hard to compete. So you're going to need those incentives. Cities, though, might actually be incentivized to do it because they don't want all these people coming in their cars and creating extra air pollution, which we know is a problem for COVID, and lots of other things.
Right.
So electric cars, they may find reason to do it, or they may even find sort of a carbon tax incentive.
All right, Emily Chasen, thank you so much. Our sustainability editor for Bloomberg, joining us on the phone. How to make your electric car more than a car. I think people think about this a lot. I mean, even just looking at my neighborhood and sort of seeing, when people buy new cars, they're definitely thinking more about it. We've been talking about it. I mean, I know you're waiting for the electric station wagon because you're a wagonista.
But we talk about it a lot too. Yeah. And who were kind of waiting to do something so that it makes sense.
Would you buy a Tesla?
I don't know if I would.
Yeah.
I don't know. We've definitely talked about it. And I know your dad has one.
Yeah.
And I know loves it. And I know everybody who has one loves it. I think, we need to make sure that there are the charging stations that are around.
Yeah.
You really have to have the infrastructure to make it work. But I really do think, and I do wonder, is electric vehicles the ultimate answer? Because you still have those batteries you've got to deal with, right?
Yeah, true.
And you've got power facilities that have to charge the batteries. And I don't know if that's ultimately the answer.
So you just want cars that run on magic? Is that what you're going for? They got to run on something.
I've been talking to Walt Disney, and they've got some fairy dust that can...
Bob Iger, in his role as executive chairman, is going to
Bob
just
Iger
create
can solve everything.
Magic cars that don't run on anything. They just run on pixie dust.
Hydrocarbon, water. Wouldn't that be great? Solar, using the sun. I just think we haven't pushed it. And maybe we need a global collaboration of people really trying to kind of push the envelope. Stop laughing at me, Jason Kelly.
I'm laughing at you. Full confession.
Pixie dust.
I'm laughing at you. It's pixie dust. Carol Master pulls up in her pixie dust car. Anyway, you're listening to Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are roaring ahead in the final hour as investors bank on a quick economic recovery from the coronavirus pandemic. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 483. The S&P is up 39. The Nasdaq up 75. The list of retail bankruptcies is about to get longer. RTW Retail Winds, the parent of New York & Company, says a filing is probable. It said in a filing that it has not paid rent in April and May and has not made recent payments to many vendors. A big win for private equity firms as well as 401k investors. The Labor Department is paving the way toward allowing 401k plans to invest in buyout firms. The agency says it'll offer savers access to better returns than stocks and bonds. Leisure travelers are done with lockdowns. Weekend trips to the beach are growing more popular, with occupancy rates in some beach towns topping 80% last weekend. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
The world's financial decision makers connect on the Bloomberg terminal. The buy side and the sell side together, collaborating across markets and countries in real time, sharing ideas, negotiating trades, and forming an influential network of over 325,000 financial professionals that helps power global markets.
Isn't it time you join them? Request a demo at Bloomberg.com/professional.
It's a stock market driver.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. Staying alert means you must stay at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit contact with others. Keep your distance if you go out. And wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
He does! Fabry wins it!
To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search Classic Game Replays to start listening.
Looking to freshen up your listening on TuneIn? Head to the homepage to discover something new. There you'll see custom recommendations based on your listening habits, along with new episodes of shows you've enjoyed in the past. Uncover your next audio obsession on the homepage.
Ready to talk brass tacks on what's happening in Major League Baseball? Turn to the Effectively Wild podcast from Fangraphs for daily statistics, analysis, and commentary.
One team will say, yeah, we're going to keep paying minor leaguers their stipend, and another team will say, we're going to extend the stipend through this month, and then another team will say, nope, we're cutting them off. So are extending it at least through August, which would basically be the end of the minor league regular season.
Search Effectively Wild on TuneIn to listen.
Are you fully informed on the NBA? On the NBA Hangtime podcast, veteran sports writers Sekou Smith and John Schumann analyze the latest NBA news, storylines, and discussions with guests from around the basketball universe.
Isaiah Thomas joined us here on the Hangtime podcast. Isaiah, good morning.
Everybody's doing well. As you know, my daughter tested positive.
Search NBA Hangtime on TuneIn to listen.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. The best sports story all day, 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week. ESPN Daily.
Search ESPN Daily to listen.
Wanna bet football can make you feel nostalgic?
Playing days are over, so...
On the podcast, NFL Alumni Lounge, Charlie Booth sits down with retired NFL legends to talk about their careers, life after football, and everything in between.
Mr. Darren Waller, good to have you.
Yes, sir, it's good to be here.
Dana White, welcome to the Alumni Lounge.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Big member of our NFL alumni family, the CEO of the XFL, Mr. Oliver Luck.
Charlie, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
We're here with the president, Mr. Eric Price. Good to see you.
Search NFL Alumni Lounge on TuneIn to listen.
Live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
All right, we're going to get a little technical in a minute with Dave Wilson. He's got a nice chart of the day. Always look forward to that.
Always nice. Curious about the music, too. All right, we'll get to that in just a moment. Let's get back to the trading day and take a look at those markets. Here is once again Charlie Pellet. Hey, Charlie.
Thank you very much. Well, hello there, Carol Master. 28 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. Got to stick around to see how things shake out. Look at the Dow up 526 points right now. That is a gain of 2%. We've got the S&P up by 1.4%. NASDAQ up 0.9%. But the NASDAQ 100 index is up now by 0.6%, surpassing an all-time closing record so far. By the way, for this year, NASDAQ is up 11.2%. Stocks extending their rally as investors cling to optimism for a quick economic recovery from the pandemic. The 10-year yield 0.76%, down 23.30 seconds. Gold is down 1.7%, 16.98 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.7%, 36.56 a barrel. American businesses cut payrolls at a slower pace in May, but the losses are still running in the millions as the economy reels from the pandemic. And with more on that story, we'll have a report coming up from Vinny Del Giudice. American Express fears the U.S. could see another increase in unemployment next year as large companies' vows to avoid job cuts in 2020 begin to expire. CFO Jeff Campbell made the comment at a virtual investor conference. American Express up now by about 6%. Pilgrim's Pride shares, they're plunging. Its CEO charged with price fixing by prosecutors. The Justice Department says Jason Penn was indicted by a grand jury in Colorado, along with other executives from 2 other chicken companies. Shares of Pilgrim Pride down now by about 11%. Recapping, equities higher with the S&P up 45, a gain of 1.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
I recognize the tune.
I thought it was going to be more like a bullfight type of situation.
Hey, you're on to something there, Jason.
Because it has.
You are.
So, the name of the song, or is it from a movie?
The name of the song.
A bullfight?
Has to do with the Cape, right?
Right. It's The Lonely Bull by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass.
Oh, my God.
There you go.
Wow.
That.
That's nice, Dave.
You know, considering if you're a bull on stocks, you might well be lonely at this point. I mean, especially if you read John Arthur's column today talking about how this may be already the most hated bull market in history, more so than what we saw between 2009 and...
So I just hate you more? I just hate you more market? Is that what this is?
Yeah, you could argue that. But you could also argue, as Luthold Group's Jim Paulson does, that, you know, shares may not be all that expensive by recent standards. And by recent, we're talking about the last 30 years or so. And, you know, Jason already mentioned that word CAPE. In stock terms, you're talking about the cyclically adjusted price earnings ratio. It's the one that Bob Schiller at Yale University helped develop based on earnings for the last 10 years. You do
know that Jason was thinking like Superman cape initially. I'm just going to say.
Yeah, okay, fine, whatever. But, you know, that cape, it all fits together. In any case, what happens, if you go through the numbers, and Schiller has them on his website, and I'm able to, you know, bring them down, put them on the Bloomberg terminal, turn them into a chart, you find out that, you know, as far as last month goes, they don't have all the data for May, but they have enough to have a preliminary figure, a little more than 27.5 times earnings. That's where the S&P 500 was. And if you look at the average since 1990, it's just about 26. So by that standard, what we're seeing now, not all that far out of line. In fact, you go back a couple of months, you actually saw the CAPE drop below 25 times earnings. So it's pretty much where it's been for the past 30 years. And I say that because, as Paulson notes in a report earlier this week, that you saw the CAPE really jump up from what it had been going back from 1880 to 1989. So, it's a real kind of quantum leap up, which he attributes to, the biggest technology companies, the ones we always talk about. In any case, if you want to see this comparison, folks, send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
What do you think about that, Dave Wilson?
It's an interesting concept, which is why I put it out as a chart, the whole idea that, you look at these companies like Apple and Microsoft and, Google's owner Alphabet, and, they're even though they're as big as they are, they've grown much faster over time and been able to sustain that than a whole lot of other companies. And, there's been a whole push into stocks over the last 30 years. So, yeah, I mean, at very least, it's something worth considering.
And maybe not, when folks say overvalued, maybe not so much, right?
That's sort of Paulson's point.
Right.
In the end, as he was quoted as saying, may not be as grossly overpriced as many perceive. That's his view on U.S. stocks anyway.
Well, and, this coming on a day, and I love that you referenced John Arthur's column because it's dead on. I mean, people are very doubtful to the point of sneering at this bull market, dare I say, Dave Wilson. So interesting to try and get our arms around it in many ways. I mean, I was just looking at the WEI, the World Equity Index, and looking at the year to date. I mean, on the S&P alone, we're 2 good days from being in the green for the year, which is remarkable.
Kind of reminds you of 1987. You had the big plunge in October, and the S&P 500 closed higher that year.
Yeah, amazing. All right, Dave Wilson, we'll catch up with you in a little less than 20 minutes when we talk about or a little more than 20 minutes. Sorry, I can't read the clock. When we talk about your stock of the day.
Yeah, it's close enough.
Yeah.
It's like 21 minutes and 30 seons.
So he could have gone with like a Superman type thing.
Yeah, I could totally, right?
Dun, 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 dun.
Get John Williams or something.
Yeah, exactly. Those are good movies.
Yeah. Gonna watch some movies over the weekend? I feel like it's Friday. Isn't that crazy?
I've been watching, we just got HBO Max.
It's only
and there's a bunch of Turner Classic movies. There's a whole Turner Classic movie channel in there. So I've been watching a bunch of movies from the 70s. I've watched the...
What'd you watch?
The Parallax View. Do you know that movie?
No.
It's Alan Pakula and Warren Beatty movie. It's great. It was suggested after I watched Michael Clayton, which is a more recent movie, obviously, with George Clooney, which is terrific. Yeah. It's those sort of like 70s thrillers, like Clute. So I'm sort of going down
That's Jane Fonda, right?
Yes, exactly. Clute. Yeah, Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda and Donald Sutherland, a young Donald Sutherland in Clute. God. So I also watched The Player recently, which is, again, more contemporary.
I have to say, that is like one of those perfect movies. There's a couple of them, Independence Day.
Yeah.
I feel like The Green Mile. Like, there are just some movies. Forrest Gump. I know.
Oh, boy. Let's not go there. Let's not do that.
It's a perfect movie.
Yeah.
It's so creative. It's so well done.
Yeah. The Player was really good. I mean, that's obviously Roger Altman and Tim Robbins, a much younger Tim Robbins. I mean, yeah. It's
that opening shot, right? It's just one long shot. It's just beautiful.
With it, everybody just sort of keeps playing off of each other, and so many great cameos. I loved it. So HBO Max is not doing great, by the way. You know what else is not doing great? We haven't talked about this. We need to talk about it at some point. I was talking with a producer earlier. Quibi. Oof.
Did they already start to shift gears about kind of what they need to do?
Yes, they have. They have. And it is... it's not great. I mean, and part of it was all based on mobile at a time when we're not moving around very much.
Did you see the headline? They asked, according to Dow Jones, they asked senior executives to take a 10% pay cut. That was today, just like a couple hours ago.
Quibi did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've been revamping their programming. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see kind of how that all plays out. But the streaming wars, they are real for sure. But HBO Max, I'm in.
It comes down to content. Like, I think about that. You know what I mean? Like, you look at these different streaming services, there's so many. And, I mean, the battle is on big time. And at some point, as a household, you're going to say, wait a minute, this is too much money. I don't need all of this. And you're going to cut back because it's getting a little bit out of control. All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
What's the true value of your custodial relationship? Ben Harrison of BNY Mellon's Pershing explains.
As sophisticated investors demand more from their advisors, advisory firms, in turn, need to rely on their custodian to help them grow their complex businesses. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, supporting the rapid growth of RIAs is our number one priority. We understand what it means to deliver true value to our clients who are looking for a custodian that is aligned with their best interest and delivers high-value solutions, all in an open architecture environment with flexibility, choice, and transparency. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength, resiliency, and high-touch service that BNY Mellon Pershing provides. When you work with Pershing, we put your business first. Can your custodian say that?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Pershing Advisor Solutions, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Are you interested in a challenging
For the friendships, for the fresh air, for the space to grow, for the knowledge, for the sport, for the outdoor education, for the wide horizons, for the academic excellence, for the future. Unleash your child's education at West Buckland School, a co-educational day and boarding school in beautiful North Devon. If you're moving to the southwest for a better quality of life, this is education without compromise, in what the Good Schools Guide called a gem of a school in an exceptional location. To see for yourself, find us at westbuckland.com.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. Staying alert means you must stay at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit contact with others. Keep your distance if you go out. And wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Airbags to kids.
Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs. Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
At Asda, we've provided 3,500 care homes with priority access to delivery slots, and priority shopping hours are open to our care workers. We're also donating 250,000 face masks to care homes. Asda, we're all in this together. Please show ID for priority shopping. Check asda.com for times.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
He does! Fabry wins it!
To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
How do you keep track of all your favorite stations and podcasts? Easy. You add them to your favorites list. Just find the audio you want to bookmark and tap the heart icon. Then, whenever you want to browse your favorites, you'll find everything under the Favorites tab.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Over a man, into the end zone.
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There are going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
Pass to the 5! Touchdown! Search classic game replays to listen for free.
This is Mike Tirico, introducing you to Sports Uncovered.
When I lose the sense of motivation and the sense of to prove something as a basketball player, it's time for me to move away from the game of basketball.
Quote unquote, I'm back.
I'm back. The 2-word facts from Michael Jordan announcing the most famous comeback in NBA history.
That's the most impactful 2 words ever. Search Sports Uncovered to listen on TuneIn today.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing. Banks leading the S&P 500 index toward a 3-month high. NASDAQ is up 86 points right now, up 0.9%, bringing its year-to-date gain to 8%. NASDAQ 100 index trading close to a record. Right now, the S&P is up 45, up 1.5%. The Dow surging 550 points, up by 2.1%. 10-year yield 0.75%, down 22.30 seconds. Gold down 1.7%, 16.98 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 0.1%, 36.85 a barrel. Stocks higher across the board. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no.
Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
Question to drive us.
This is the Drive to the Close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
All right, well, as we head to another green close, it's become a bit of a habit lately. Let's check in with Michael Sheldon, Executive Director, Chief Investment Officer for Hightower RDM Financial Group. Joining us on the phone from Westport. Michael, nice to have you back with us. I trust all is well over there in Connecticut.
Yeah, so far so good. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, hearing a little bit more about reopening plans. We had a doctor on earlier who based out near you, a little down the coast from you, in Stanford, talking about some pretty aggressive testing that's going to go on, and we've heard a lot from your governor about what reopening looks like. From where you are, what does reopening look like for Connecticut?
Well, I think all the states are sort of in the same boat. I think the governors are looking at, they want to see less cases going on. They want to see less people in hospitals. They want to see less mortality, less people dying, obviously, from this. They want to see some improvement. And I think generally Connecticut was one of the first states to get hard hit, and especially Westport and Fairfield County, where I am. And we've definitely seen some improvement, which is a positive sign looking ahead. And sort of bringing that towards the markets, I wanted to start off by saying that there's an old saying in the markets, which used to be, don't fight the Fed. And I think the new saying now is, don't fight the Fed in Congress. Together, the Fed and Congress have basically spent about $6 to $7 trillion over the past couple of months. And they spent that money to temporarily replace the lost income from slowing down and shutting down the economy due to COVID-19. And now we're starting to see, as the economy starts to open up, we're starting to see some improvement, which is now reflected in the equity markets.
I feel like it's also, Michael, don't fight Germany, don't fight the ECB. There's a headline that just crossed, Angela Merkel's coalition reaching a deal on a German stimulus package. If one thing investors can kind of count on right now is that leaders central banks, they're going to do what they need to do to make sure everything financially continues to work and move smoothly. And that usually means pumping a lot of money into the system to make sure that there's no credit crunches or liquidity squeezes.
Yeah, I think you're right. Central banks around the world have definitely coordinated, and they've pumped money into the economy. In the United States, talking about liquidity, for example, when the Federal Reserve rolled out its plan to actually start purchasing corporate bonds, both in the primary and secondary market a few weeks ago, I thought, to me, that was a bit of a game changer because the credit markets were really becoming unglued. And just before the Fed even bought any corporate bonds, which they started just a week or two ago, they basically told the markets that they're going to do, it was sort of their Mario Draghi moment where they said, we're going to do whatever it takes. And that announcement by the Federal Reserve a few weeks ago basically started to free up the credit markets, and you need a functioning credit market for the economy to function.
So what do you worry the most about here, Michael?
Well, I think there are a number of concerns we have right now. One is China-U.S. relations seem to be getting worse after starting to get better last year. We have rising debt levels. Debt levels are rising very quickly as a result of all the spending going on. We don't think that's a problem for right now because it's so inexpensive to finance all this debt. But down the road, we may certainly face higher taxes. We have the upcoming election this fall, which will bring some uncertainty. And then there's obviously concerns about the strength of the recovery, how long it will take to replace all the jobs that have been lost. And then there's also the fear as we go into the fall that COVID-19 could make a return later this year.
That's what I worry about, though. Certainly the virus coming back, but I do wonder about labor dislocations of, temporary workers losing jobs and those temporary job cuts become permanent. And we just did a story. We talked with our Bloomberg economics team, Yelena Shaletova, our senior U.S. economist, that it's not just blue collar. Now we're looking at another wave that will start to impact white collar jobs as well, right? Like it's just a reminder that when there's a slowdown in the economy, it's not just one entity, one industry, one company that gets impacted. It's their whole supply chain, who they sell to, who they buy to. Or buy from.
I think it'll be very interesting. We get the monthly jobs report coming out this Friday, and the numbers they're expecting right now are once again going to be sky high. They're expecting a decline of about another 8 million workers, and the unemployment rate at 19.8%. But I think one of the key things going forward is when we had the last jobs number, the last jobs report, I think the number was something like 75 to 80% of all the workers said that their jobs had just been temporarily downsized. So if those jobs do, in fact, if those furloughed workers do eventually come back in the not-too-distant future, I think that would certainly set the stage for a more robust pickup in the economy and consumer sentiment, consumer spending. So but the job market is definitely something that needs to be watched over time.
And so just to press that point a little bit, Michael, the job picture, we saw ADP numbers today, we see jobless claims tomorrow, and as you say, we see the monthly jobs report on Friday. Like, what's the number amid all of that, or even a specific data point within one of those reports that you're most focused on seeing?
Well, I think it's important that in general, economic data has been trending higher. So it's not the absolute level that investors are watching. It's the rate of change. And that rate of change is starting to get better. Weekly jobless claims have now declined for 8 consecutive weeks. And they were still over 2 million last week, which is an incredibly high number historically. But the trend is definitely positive. And you're seeing that in other areas like auto sales, for example, which rose from about 8.5 to 12 million units yesterday. The ISM Services Index rose from about 41 to 45. So you're seeing a number of economic statistics either getting less worse or starting to get better. But jobs will definitely be important. It could very well take several quarters or 2 or 3 years until we make back the majority of the jobs that were lost over the past several months.
Michael, the jump back that we've seen in stocks, the bounce back, we're up about 40% on the S&P 500. We're still off our highs, but we're still down about 3% so far to date. Makes sense to you so far, or do you think the equity markets are getting ahead of them? And just got about 30 seconds here.
Sure. Well, looking at valuation right now, the S&P is trading at about 24 times this year's numbers and 20 times next year's numbers. So a lot of good news has certainly been priced in. I think as long as the direction of the economy continues to improve in the months ahead, I think the benefit of the doubt will be towards higher equity markets, but it won't be in a straight line.
All right. Michael Sheldon, thank you so much. Good to catch up with you as always. Michael Sheldon is the Executive Director, Chief Investment Officer of Hightower RDM Financial Group, joining us on the phone from Westport. Carol?
So, listen, we're up 40% from our low on the S&P, but we're still about 8% from their highs. Listen, Jason, listen.
Listen to me.
I just, it's dramatic. Like, I agree with you. We're going to look back, I don't know, a couple years from now. We're going to look at those charts, like you say, and the swings are just so dramatic.
Yeah.
And
it's really amazing. I mean, anyone who's looked at their 401k recently, I think, is gobsmacked by what we've seen over the past. I mean, that dip in recovery is just phenomenal. So we'll see if it holds on. The close is next. You're listening to Bloomberg.
With a new day comes new...
For the friendships, for the fresh air, for the space to grow, for the knowledge, for the sport, for the outdoor education, for the wide horizons, for the academic excellence, for the future. Unleash your child's education at West Buckland School, a co-educational day and boarding school in beautiful North Devon. If you're moving to the southwest for a better quality of life, this is education without compromise, in what the Good Schools Guide called a gem of a school in an exceptional location. To see for yourself, find us at westbuckland.com.
You know that feeling when you get more than you expected? Like discovering that the box of chocolates has a whole other layer underneath? Or scoring extra poppadoms with your takeaway? Or joining Tesco Mobile and finding out you get the latest phones and 99% UK network coverage? Yeah, that moment feels good, right? Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
99% 4G population coverage indoors and outdoors across UK.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids. Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs.
Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing, so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert, control the virus, save lives.
Today at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Gets headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg World Headquarters. I'm Charlie Pellet. A move higher for the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ. George Anderson of Energy Transfer virtually ringing a closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange. S&P up again today, closing near session highs, up 42 points. That was an advance of 1.4%. The Dow up 527 at the close, a gain of 2%. NASDAQ surged 74 points today, up by 0.8%. Investors are clinging to optimism for a quick economic recovery from the pandemic. NASDAQ 100 index briefly surpassing its February closing record. NASDAQ 100 up today by 0.5%, bringing its year-to-date gain to 11.1%. Banks led the S&P 500 index to a 3-month high. 4 stocks advanced for every one that fell. So what are the concerns, though, for investors? Michael Sheldon is Chief Investment Officer at Hightower RDM. He was our guest right here on Bloomberg Business Week.
We have the upcoming election this fall, which will bring some uncertainty. And then there's obviously concerns about the strength, the recovery, how long it will take to replace all the jobs that have been lost. And then there's also the fear as we go into the fall that COVID-19 could make a return later this year.
And the number of U.S. virus cases up 1.2% 2%, matching the average over the past week. Warner Music Group rose in its trading debut today after shareholders raised $1.93 billion in an upsized initial public offering, the biggest U.S. listing this year. Shares of Warner Music Group up today by about 20%. A once obscure ETF tracking airlines soared past $1 billion, largely bolstered by day trading. The U.S. Global Jets Exchange Traded Fund, or JETS, posted its 64th consecutive day of inflows, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. JETS up today, flying higher by 7.3% among some of the other airline names. UAL up 12.5%. American Airlines Group up 5.6%. Delta up 7.8%. Southwest up 5.6%. Gold down 1.6%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Wild thing, think you move me.
I got a few moves I know you'll like.
Oh, come on, Tim. Shake him, not stir.
Just move on toward your destination.
I can make things move without touching them.
Shaking all over.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
It is time to take a look at the market, a little bit of a deeper dive. Charlie Pellet giving us those closing equity averages. We saw a little bit of selling into the close, but nonetheless a rally on this Wednesday. What does it mean for the S&P 500? Overwhelmingly gains. 416 names in the S&P 500, higher today, 88 lower, 1 unchanged. If I look at those major industry groups, there are 11 of them. Top of the pack, Jason, industrials, financial, energy. The only group that lost some ground was healthcare, down about 0.2%, but nonetheless, very broad-based buying in the trade today. And it was a global rally. We've been talking about this throughout the day.
Well, and interesting when you look at the individual names that were moving higher, really leading the way. Your number one gainer, a company familiar to our audience. We've had the CEO on our air, Simon Property Group. They are reopening, so that is providing a lot of enthusiasm for retail coming back. You also had a couple travel-related names. You heard Charlie mention, I believe, earlier in the show, United Airlines, UAL. That was one of your biggest gainers for the day. And on the other side of the trade, you had a couple names that are probably more associated with staying at home, some video game makers, ATVI, Activision Blizzard, and Take-Two, TTWO.
And then there's keeping up with the cosmetics company Coty. See what I did there?
I see what you did there, and so multifaceted. It's great. Well, I tweeted that earlier when I saw the story by Kim Basine that another Kardashian maybe being like, I want some of that Coty money. Right.
Right. I mean, so Coty now talking apparently with Kim Kardashian West on a possible collaboration with respect to certain beauty products. That's in quotation marks, whatever the heck that means, according to a regulatory filing. So the partnership, we know, coming just a few months after Coty closed a $600 million deal with reality TV star's sister, Kylie Jenner.
Yeah, exactly. So the Kardashian-Jenner sisters.
It's going to be Cody Kardashian or Kardashian Cody.
Listen, people have done worse financially than getting into business with that family. That's for sure.
The chief executive officer, apparently, of Coty, I guess he was named to the post this week.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
he
new
said
CEO.
that he's pretty good friends with the family's business manager, also known as Kris Jenner, also known as Mom.
Also known as Mama. Yeah. Well, and
Mama
she's
Kardashian.
done. She's done. I mean, what was the quote that you had a few weeks ago? It's like self-made millionaire or self-made billionaire, and you wanted to amend it to mom-made billionaire. You know, we're all made by our mothers, right?
Yeah. Well, yes, but you know what I mean, right? Like, if they hadn't become the thing they are in reality TV, would people be rushing out to buy their highlighters and lipsticks?
No.
Probably not.
I think the answer to that is a very simple no.
I just
Anything
have to
else
say,
you're watching?
Well, no, but I do love that Coty story because, man, that stock is just constantly on the move, man. You got to have a strong stomach if you're in that name because some days it loses, some days it gains. Listen, Boeing, also among your biggest gainers today, up almost 13%.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, UAL also up about 12%. I think this is just, I really do think investors to some extent are like, okay, maybe we see the bottom. Maybe we're beyond the bottom, and they're starting to see good signs and better stories. and it just gives them reason for optimism.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I mean, I hope they're right in many cases, but or in many ways for so many reasons. All right, let's take a look at volatility. It was down today a touch, about 5%, a little less than 5%, closing the 25 handle, 25.62. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door, it's Dave! Who? Dave! Hey, Mr. Wilson!
With us, our stocks editor with his stock of the day. What's on your mind?
One Water Marine is on my mind, Jason. It's a company that sells recreational boats through dealerships in the eastern half of the U.S. and in Texas. The company's homepage refers to, quote, an aggressive expansion strategy, end quote, of buying dealers across North America. One Water was founded in 2014 and made its initial public offering this past February. The ticker is ONEW, 1W. The IPO was done at $12 a share, and the stock climbed as high as $18.40 in the first 2 weeks of trading. Then it plunged 81% to just $3.41 in less than a month. Since then, One Water has recouped the entire loss. The share set a record today after the company provided an update on its fiscal third quarter ending this month. One Water's revenue growth in April and May accelerated to more than 30% from the second quarter's 5.1%. Sales at locations open more than a year rose 25% in that 2-month stretch. It's more than double the pace for all of last quarter. One Water's shares climbed as high as $18.81 in response to the figures. They closed at $18.39, and that's a gain of 16%.
That's interesting, right?
Yeah. Looks kind of like a company trying to roll up the recreational boat industry, as they call it in business school.
How's the Masser family feeling about boating these days, Carol Masser?
In the water. And actually, if you want to do social distancing, it's a little tricky because you've got to,
The marina is the tricky part, right?
Yeah, and there are rules. Like there's a launch that you take out to your boat, and there's only so many people because there's a launch driver, so usually it's only 2 people on the boat, and everybody's got to have masks. And we've reminded a few people to make sure they've got their masks on because we just want to be. I know. Are you surprised?
No.
But I do say once you're out there, everybody, you're out in the open, you're out in the fresh air, and you can then fairly easily do social distancing. Not spending too much time like at the restaurant and things like that, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I think I speak for all of Twitter when I say we're looking forward to all those scout pics from the boat this summer. Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Have a great evening. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Let's head out to San Francisco. Ed Baxter, I believe, is there, and he's got our World of National Headlines. Hey, Ed.
Yeah, we have news developing just in the past few minutes, Jason. It's official now. Charges against former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin have been upgraded to second-degree murder, while 3 other officers who watched on have now been charged with aiding and abetting. All 4 have been terminated. A major split in the president's cabinet as Defense Secretary Mark Esper says he will not authorize a military use for military on street duty.
The option to use active duty forces in a law enforcement role should only be used as a matter of last resort and only in the most urgent and dire of situations.
Which he says this is not. The White House says he is still Defense Secretary. And former Defense Secretary and Presidential Chief of Staff Liam Panetta is commending Secretary Esper on his stand and says the president now needs to listen to his advisors.
That's critically important at a time when you're facing this kind of serious threat to the country.
Panetta on Bloomberg's Balance of Power with David Weston. Less violence in New York City overnight, and Governor Cuomo, who was critical yesterday of police, say he is more satisfied today.
My issue was with the management and deployment, never about the police officers.
And the curfew remains in place. Snapchat has yanked Donald Trump's feed from its Discover platform, citing threats of violence made by the president. Bloomberg's Sarah Fryer says Snap appeals to younger demographic, hurtful to the president's campaign.
So Snapchat is really the place
where the youth political discussion is happening. And Snapchat actually has a bigger daily user base than Twitter does. So it's quite crucial in the election, especially for those first-time voters.
Well, the president has reacted angrily. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Why can't you just go to some remote island and wait till all this is over?
The range of outcomes is so wide.
Because it's your job.
What do you think some of the structural changes might result?
Fortunately, it's our job too.
How's the value done in this market?
Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz.
It's very hard to make a forecast.
Bloomberg Markets.
This could be a lower for longer type of hit.
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
At Bloomberg, we know a lot of financial experts.
He's a former president of the European Central Bank.
Your Global Financial Warriors is a classic textbook.
A lot of political experts.
If you were advising the President of the United States, what's the thing that he's not doing that he should do?
And lucky for you, we know a lot of science experts too.
You talked about those reagents which are necessary for the testing.
It's also the behavioral psychological approach.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
This Independence Day, it's a...
For the friendships, for the fresh air, for the space to grow, for the knowledge, for the sport, for the outdoor education, for the wide horizons, for the academic excellence, for the future. Unleash your child's education at West Buckland School, a co-educational day and boarding school in beautiful North Devon. If you're moving to the southwest for a better quality of life, this is education without compromise in what the Good Schools Guide called a gem of a school in an exceptional location. To see for yourself, find us at westbuckland.com.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus symptoms and testing. If you have any one of the following symptoms, a high temperature, a new continuous cough, loss of taste or smell, you can now get tested. Do not leave home for any reason other than to get tested. Find out how to get a test and how long to isolate at nhs.uk/coronavirus. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Uncle Ben's rice, 250 grams for just £1. And our Butcher's Selection chicken breast fillets, only £3.40 for 650 grams. Why not whack it in the wok? At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
What do you do to be an everyday superhero, like Dan?
So my baby boy Ben and me just wanted to share what we do to look after the environment. We put the wet wipes we use in the bin instead of down the loo. It would be pretty nasty if that lot ended up blocking our pipes.
Wet wipes and nappies block thousands of pipes every year. Save our sewers, rivers and seas by putting them in the bin, where they belong. Visit thameswater.co.uk/bin it. Together, we can care for the environment.
We're all in uncharted territory looking for ways to support our communities. At Dell Technologies, we're making sure small businesses have the right tech solutions. Dell Technologies advisors are here for you, helping small businesses stay connected and productive while working remotely with Windows 10 Pro and Microsoft Teams. We're standing by you every step of the way. Call us today on 0800 169 1745. That's 0800 169 1745.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
The Woj Pod with Adrian Wojnarowski.
Doris, you had reason to believe that you needed to get a test for the coronavirus.
Right. Well, let's just start with the headline, which is I did test positive for COVID-19. I was so tired from Saturday the 14th through Tuesday, March 17th. I kid you not, I could not be out of bed for 5 minutes without needing to go back to bed and lay down.
Search the Woj Pod to listen. With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search Classic Game Replays to start listening. Looking for your daily fix of NFL news and analysis?
In that. So we had to blow it up at the Super Bowl predictions instead.
Look no further than the Pick Six podcast, where CBS sports writer Will Brinson gets you up to speed with what's trending in the NFL that day, so that you're always in the know.
Yeah, it's pretty revealing of Brinson's methodology for predictions. When he gets mad at people for predicting good teams are going to win the Super Bowl or good players are going to win major awards, that's how you wind up.
Search Pick Six on TuneIn to listen.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet, just getting a sales update from Costco. May total comparable sales up 5.4%. Estimates 1.6%. Costco shares up now by 0.4%. S&P, the Dow, NASDAQ all advancing today. 4 in a row on the S&P. Let's begin there, up 42 points, up 1.4%. The Dow up 527, surging 2% today. NASDAQ up 74, up by about 0.8%. 3-month high, by the way, on the S&P. 4 in a row, and 4 stocks gained for every one that fell. 10-year, 0.75% on the yield, down 20-30 seconds. Gold down 1.7%, $16.97 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.2%, $36.76 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. And this hour, we're going to have a series of conversations that I think are really interesting and important because they go the next step in many ways beyond, I think, a lot of what we're all thinking and feeling about the unrest that it is around us and some of what it is laying bare economically, some real systemic and structural challenges that face us and that we need to work together to overcome. Jay Lippman joins us now. He is the co-founder and president of Ethic. He joins us on the phone, and Ethic, it's a sustainable asset manager. We want to dig into what that means, but specifically looking at corporate behaviors that may disproportionately harm African Americans and other minority communities. Jay, it's really nice to have you here with Carol and myself. Help us understand what Ethic is all about.
Well, Jason, Carol, thank you so much for having me. And yes, I think you captured it quite well. Ethic is a sustainable asset management platform and manager that essentially creates investment vehicles to address many of the defining issues of our time. And whether that's climate justice or racial justice, it's looking at many different layers of corporate activity to define whether or not they are achieving a solution towards these goals or they are exacerbating it and making it worse.
So, Jay, how do you measure that? Because that's, I think, one of the things that we've been trying to get our head around, and I think it's getting better in terms of certainly the ESG space and sustainable investing space, that not all of the metrics are the same in terms of how either companies measure something. So I'm curious, how do you get at it to make sure that when somebody makes an investment, they're getting what they, what they want?
It's a fantastic question. I think that you need to look at it in two different ways. You need to look at the data that you're able to get access to. And the way that we approach it is by aggregating numerous different data sets to define what is and isn't being done by a company. But it's also understanding what data to look for, because with issues like racial justice that are more nuanced, more sensitive, more subtle, you have to understand the kinds of influences that companies can have, either good or bad, as it pertains to this issue. So that can spread across the more obvious components, but also the less obvious things like private prisons, air pollution, and other things that connect deeply to this issue and the injustices that are, prevalent across the country and historically.
Well, and that historical piece, I think, is really interesting, Jay, and we're talking a lot about that. So what do you look for from a proactive perspective? Because I know that this is a conversation that we're having it at our company. I'm having it with our employees a lot. I know a lot of leaders and CEOs are having that same conversation of what are the actionable things that we can do to change this. And ultimately, I would imagine that would candidly make it more attractive for an investment platform like you. So what do you look for?
Well, on the positive side, the predominant thing you can look for is the diversity policies and practices. Obviously there's legal mandates that ensure certain levels of protections, but the fact of the matter is, many Black Americans do report being on the receiving end of racial discrimination when applying for jobs, when it comes to being paid equally or being considered for promotion. So whether or not there are the appropriate policies and procedures and practices in place that are being enforced is a way that you can look to whether a company is actually protecting and ensuring that everyone has the equal right to opportunity within the company and people coming into the company. There's also other things you can look at, whether it's revenues from financial inclusion efforts, including microcredit or other microfinance services for low-income borrowers. Does the company provide daycare services and or flexible working schemes? There are other things that we can look at as it pertains to racial justice on the positive side and the proactive side, per your question.
But it's interesting too, Jay, that money will make a difference, right? And if we can get investors to really invest with a conscience, you can definitely shape what companies are doing, what they're investing in. I mean, because, we've had many smart conversations this week as a result of what happened with George Floyd and Minneapolis, that ultimately what's going on in the African American community, it's all about poverty, so that if we don't provide a way to fix that, then none of it really matters. And none of it changes.
Absolutely. Well, because of that, we have to look at the things that are creating poverty, right? So let's look at the industries that are actually systemically exacerbating that issue and pushing more people into a precarious financial situation. So the best example of which we believe is predatory lending. Yeah. Right? If you look at an industry that is actually predominantly made up of exploiting its borrowers by offering them subprime loans, then you're actually going to be looking at an industry that is exacerbating this upon racial lines. Because, let's use this as an example. In the run-up to the 2008-2009 crisis, Black Americans were 3.9 times more likely than white Americans to receive those subprime loans, even when controlling for credit risk. Right, so this kind of predatory nature of these financial vehicles does mean that the vulnerable communities and communities of color are going to be on the losing end of those practices and thus create more poverty that exacerbates this cycle that we're seeing today.
Well, and I know one of the areas that you're also looking at is the prison sector and private prisons. And, anybody who reads even a few sentences about that, and we just essentially assigned in our family forever all the teenagers and us to reread is Just Mercy. And you read the statistics in that book, and it just is unbelievable, the incarceration rates and how disproportionate it is when it comes to communities of color and whatnot. So it seems like that's a clear one that you guys are involved in, or more to the point, not involved in, right?
Well, Jason, you actually capture it so well, which is the first point is the education that we can all be doing ourselves, right? Whether it's Just Mercy or The New Jim Crow, which was one of the first books that I read when I actually came to this country to understand this issue. The numbers speak for themselves, right? The US has the highest incarceration rate in the world. And, it is predominantly people of color that are caught up in the system, right? Despite representing, 28% of the U.S. population.
That's right.
Black and Hispanic Americans comprise 63% of the nation's prisoners.
Right.
And as a result, this system is exacerbating this.
Jay, we're going to have you come back at some point because we would love to continue this conversation with you because you're hitting on so many important points. Jay Lippman, co-founder, president of Ethic, joining us on the phone on this Wednesday. You are listening to Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Investors have decided the economy may have already hit bottom, and that gave them reason to celebrate. So they sent the stock averages higher by 0.8 to more than 2%. The Dow up 527 points, the Nasdaq 75, the S&P 42. Data pointed them in that direction, with payroll company ADP reporting 2.75 million jobs cut by private business in May. But economists have been bracing for something on the order of 9 million. The Institute for Supply Management snapshot of the services sector moved off its April lows last month. It's still in contraction territory, but not by as much. Investors gave Lyft one after the ride-sharing company reported a 26% increase in rides last month. Shares rose nearly 9%, but Boeing got even more lift. Its shares rose nearly 13% to send the Dow flying. On word, a billionaire investors company, Third Point, had taken a stake in the plane maker. I'm Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions. COVID-19. On days when it seems...
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
Looking to freshen up your listening on TuneIn? Head to the homepage to discover something new. There you'll see custom recommendations based on your listening habits, along with new episodes of shows you've enjoyed in the past. Uncover your next audio obsession on the homepage.
Ready for some straight talk on what's happening in the MLB? On the Barstool Sports Podcast starting 9, Dallas Braden and Jared Carrabis cut through the BS to break down the league the way they really see it.
Yeah, we're continuing our little mini-series of college baseball coaches in addition to bringing you major league players from throughout the league. If you've been listening to Starting 9 for some time now, you know that we've had a big leaguer on every single episode for probably 2 years now.
Search Starting 9 on TuneIn to listen.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Where do sports, culture, and basketball nostalgia collide? On their podcast, Knuckleheads, NBA veterans Quentin Richardson and Darius Miles sit down with athletes, musicians, and entertainers to get brutally honest, totally unguarded conversations about everything from current events to untold stories from the golden era of sports.
Shaquille O'Neal. You know that, right? I tried to tip dunk off the free throw line one time.
Search Knuckleheads on TuneIn to listen.
This is Mike Golick from ESPN's Golick and Wingo. Every morning, Trey Wingo, my son, and I sit down to discuss all the news, drama, and highlights spinning the sports world that day. And with TuneIn, you can hear us whenever and wherever you go. Just search Golick and Wingo to start listening today.
It's TuneIn Sports on this day. On this day in 1980, the New York Mets draft Darryl Strawberry at age 18.
Here's Darryl warming up their third pitcher. Well hit to left center field. Out of here, Darryl Strawberry's first Major League home run. Strawberry goes to the opposite power alley with great authority. It's a 2-run home run.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search Classic Game Replays to start listening.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Balls over a man, into the end zone,
Come explore TuneIn's Classic Game Replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There are going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be one team hold up the trophy.
Search Classic Game Replays to listen for free.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying
to standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
Broadcasting live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Provocative conversation, and I feel like it segues really well into where we're going.
Teed us right up. Really looking forward to this next story. It was one you and I immediately gravitated toward this morning. It's about the economic struggles of Black Americans and how this all weaves together, and maybe, just maybe, some things we can do about it. All right, we're going to get to that next. First, let's get back to some business headlines. Charlie Pellet. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there, Jason Kelly, and happy Wednesday to you both. We told you that Angela Merkel's coalition in Germany did reach a deal on a German stimulus package. Now we know the size of that package. Germany is going to spend a total of 130 billion euros for stimulus measures. That headline breaking right now on the Bloomberg Professional Service. It was an update on Wall Street with the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all surging. Did see a late session fade, but finishing close to session highs with the S&P up 42 points at 3122, a gain there of about 1.4%. 4 in a row on the S&P 500 index. The Dow surging 572 points today. That was a gain of actually 527 points, up 2%. NASDAQ up 74, a gain there of 0.8%. 10-year down 19/30 seconds with a yield of 0.74%. Gold down 1.7%. 16.98 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude today advanced falling by 0.5%. 36.64 a barrel. NASDAQ 100 index did briefly surpass its February closing record. Wall Street, meanwhile, is looking ahead to Friday's jobs report. Jobless claims tomorrow morning. Matt Hornback is head of global macro strategy at Morgan Stanley.
We are expecting the unemployment rate to vault higher again on Friday, but we think it will probably be a better outcome than consensus currently expects. And we also think that it will likely mark the peak in the unemployment rate for the cycle.
Again, repeating the sales update from Costco. May total comp sales up 5.4%. Estimates there 1.6%. Delta Airlines says it will block middle seats on all its aircraft through September 30th, extending the policy for 3 months to soothe passenger fears about contracting the coronavirus. Delta shares did advance today, surging 7.8%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Hey, Charlie, really appreciate that. Charlie Pellet with a Bloomberg Business News Flash. So I feel like this just plays really well into the conversation, Jason, we just had with Jay Lippman, talking about sustainable investing and talking a lot about the African-American community and what is going on. And this next story, it's on the Bloomberg. It's something we've been talking about all day, and it really digs deep into the Black American economic struggle and really looks at the data points to make you understand how deep and how tough that struggle is. Katerina Saraiva, she is Federal Reserve and economics reporter at Bloomberg News. She joins us on the phone from Houston. Katerina, it's a great story, really smart, and needs to be told. Tell us a little bit about what you found in your reporting.
Hi. Yes, thank you so much. So there are, unfortunately, a lot of different data points you can look at to see the disparity between Black people and the rest of the population in this country. I think one of the more staggering ones is when you look at net worth, which is a measure of wealth. Black families in the U.S. are on a median basis are worth 1/10 less than white families, and I think that scale is really striking to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, going through this story, Katerina. I mean, it's just like chart by chart by chart. And, our previous guest, I don't know if you were listening, but, Jay Littman we were talking about incarceration rates and all these things. And he basically said that the numbers are just there, and it's not, as you said, unfortunately, you don't have to go far to find them. And there's evidence after evidence after evidence, piece of evidence after evidence. When you looked at it, was there something that seems like for lack of a better term, sort of the low-hanging fruit, as it were, that like we can fix this, or are they all sort of more intractable?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the unemployment rate between the races, there seemed to be some glimmer of hope in this last recovery, because the gap between the Black unemployment rate and the white unemployment rate was closing in a little bit. You saw that gap reach a historic low last August, actually. It was still 2 percentage points, which, any amount is still too high. And when you're talking about numbers as low as they were, last year or before the current crisis, that's still a good amount, but it had come down a lot. So that was kind of an area where I thought, maybe this can be attacked with things like, a better matching of skills with workers that are out of jobs, perhaps retraining people, programs like that, I think could perhaps ameliorate that situation further.
I have to repeat some of the statistics in this story. Median income of a Black household is about a third of the more than $77,000 a white household takes. So, they don't have as much buying power. It also means African Americans have less money to shield them against illnesses and other disasters. I'm stealing from your reporting, Katerina, because it's amazing. The median white family had $171,000 net worth in 2016, 10 times that of median Black households, which stood at a little over $17,000. I mean, I could go on, but if we want to understand kind of where we are and why it's such a deep, deep problem, not a new problem, your statistics help explain it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and to your point of, shielding from disasters, I mean, we're seeing that right now with the coronavirus pandemic. Right. The rate of deaths in the Black population are more than 2 times higher than for white people. And this is obviously a virus that, is not in and of itself racist, right? That's impossible. So clearly something in our society is creating that disparity.
No, it's a really good reminder. And, I remember when the crisis first set in, the coronavirus crisis, we have to delineate among our crises at this point. But when that crisis set in, we said, well, medically it doesn't discriminate. But what we have found out, exactly as you just said, is that it does ultimately discriminate, because there are economics that lead to, a standard of living and a standard of healthcare that contribute to all of this. It's a terrific story. It's one of the most read on the Bloomberg. Check it out there or at Bloomberg.com. Katerina Saraiva joins us from Houston. She looks after the U.S. economy and the Federal Reserve. Really just a brilliant piece of reporting, because this is how things change, is when we can get, and Jay Littman said it, once you know the numbers, you can't unsee them, right?
That's
you can't be like, I don't think there's a problem. Like, once you see those numbers, you can't look away.
Yeah, I'm going to put it on Twitter as well, because I think it's a must-read, no doubt about it. All right, let's get back to world and national news headlines. Let's get back to Ed Baxter in San Francisco. Hi, Ed.
Carol, charges against former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin have been upgraded.
I believe the evidence available to us now supports the stronger charge of second-degree murder.
Attorney General Keith Ellison says there are 3 other officers charged with aiding and abetting now. All 4 have been terminated. Protests seem to be more peaceful across the country. Overnight curfews remain in place with heavy police presence. U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper has broken with the president, saying he will not deploy U.S. military to the streets of the country. He says this is all very political.
There's a political tone to this. We are in a political season. An election approaches, and this is always a challenge for every Department of Defense in every election year.
And he says it will get worse as we get closer to the election. The White House says he is still defense secretary. The first rigorous scientific study of the drug hydroxychloroquine's efficacy in preventing COVID-19 shows it has no effect on preventing the disease. This is the drug touted by Donald Trump. Meanwhile, U.S. virus cases rise 1.2%, 1.2 matching the average over the past week. New York deaths have hit a 10-week low, the first time the total has been below 50 in 10 weeks. And restaurants in 7 regions outside the New York City area can begin outdoor dining Thursday. And New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, well, he sounded a little bit more cheerful.
All of you have done an amazing job of fighting back this disease, and now we got to go finish that job, and we got to restart for the good of all.
Yeah, California COVID-19 cases rise 2.1%. And Snapchat, its news page, has dumped Donald Trump, a very aggressive move that will limit his political campaign. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter. This is Bloomberg.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, makes innovation happen. The university helped biomedical engineering professor Tara Alvarez launch a startup that may revolutionize vision therapy.
Our startup through NJIT is called Ocular Motor Technology. We create virtual reality vision therapy in a head-mounted display. So it's gaming, and basically we're sugarcoating the therapy so that children and young adolescents don't even realize they're doing therapy. To accomplish this, we need biomedical engineers, which are here on NJIT campus, computer scientists, artists, people that are into story development, and then we're collaborating with a lot of the large pediatric medical centers. This idea of a startup culture is extremely important to not just NJIT and the National Science Foundation, but also to the U.S. as a societal whole.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
If knowledge is power, the Bloomberg Terminal.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus symptoms and testing. If you have any one of the following symptoms, a high temperature, a new continuous cough, loss of taste or smell, you can now get tested. Do not leave home for any reason other than to get tested. Find out how to get a test and how long to isolate at nhs.uk/coronavirus. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Pulls over a man into the end zone.
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There are going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be one team hold up the trophy.
Pass to the 5! Touchdown! Search classic game replays to listen for free. The
Woj Pod with Adrian Wojnarowski.
Doris, you had reason to believe that you needed to get a test for the coronavirus.
Right. Well, let's just start with the headline, which is I did test positive for COVID-19. I was so tired from Saturday the 14th to Tuesday, March 17th. I kid you not, I could not be out of bed for 5 minutes without needing to go back to bed and lay down.
Search the Woj Pod to listen.
Where do sports, culture, and basketball nostalgia collide? On their podcast, Knuckleheads, NBA veterans Quentin Richardson and Darius Miles sit down with athletes, musicians, and entertainers to get brutally honest, totally unguarded conversations about everything from current events to untold stories from the golden era of sports.
O'Neal. You know that, right? I tried to tip dunk all the free throw line one time.
Search Knuckleheads on TuneIn to listen.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games.
Bergeron, he scores!
With game replay on TuneIn, you can listen to every power play, slap shot, and goal of the 2019-2020 season so far.
Suter to Cunnin to Fiala, he scores!
And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search classic game replays to start listening.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Okay, here we go. With the NFL draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season, like the Ringer NFL show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. German Chancellor Angela Merkel's coalition has agreed to a €130 billion, $146 billion stimulus package to help Europe's biggest economy recover from the coronavirus crisis. Moments ago, a headline on the Bloomberg, Germany will also temporarily lower sales taxes until the end of 2020. Banks led the S&P 500 index toward a 3-month high today. 4 stocks gained for every one that fell. S&P 500 index up 42, up 1.4%. The Dow up 527, surging 2%. Nasdaq up 74, up by 0.8%. The Nasdaq 100 index briefly surpassed its February closing record. Nasdaq 100 index up today by 0.5%. 10-year down 18.30 seconds. Yield 0.74%. Gold down 1.7%. $16.99 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.6%. $36.60 the barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, much appreciated, Charlie. So companies have certainly had their hands full with back-to-back crises. First, the virus, and now, of course, civil unrest that's shutting down cities once again in reaction to the death of George Floyd. Our next guest is in constant communication with corporate leaders, really all leaders from all walks of life. Back with us is a respected and known voice in the world of global communications. We're talking about Richard Edelman. He's the founder and CEO of Edelman. He joins us on the phone from Long Island. And Richard, I'm so glad that you could join us again. And we have a lot to talk about. I feel like a lot has once again happened since you were joining us on our broadcast just a short while ago. I do have to start, though, with asking you about the news that you're laying off. I think it was something about 400 workers. And then you're also asking VPs and some higher-ups to take some pay cuts of, I think, something from 5 to 20%. In March, from what I understand, you didn't think you were going to have to let go of workers. What's changed since March? And I know we heard from a lot of CEOs that said, we're going to hold on to our workforce. We're going to, ride this out. And then I guess it gets harder the longer it goes on. But what's changed since March?
Well, Carol, what happened is that this is more global. It's also more cross industries than we expected, into cars, energy. And then on top of that, we had one major account shift, and that happens in our business.
we still have 5,300 people around the world, and we are going to run our business at break even for the next period of time because I want to keep as many people as we can. And we're a family business, so we can do that.
Yeah.
Well, and Richard, I have to say, and Carol and I have been talking about it sort of off air as we've been prepping for this, and I don't often do this, but, kudos to you for owning it. I mean, it's a tough time, and I do think that, and I think that leads us right into the next thing we want to talk to you about, which is, we seem to be at a moment, we talked a little bit about this last time, but I feel like it's become much sharper or come into much sharper relief, which is leaders really need to speak to their own employees and speak to the public even more candidly and even more forthrightly, not just about their own businesses, but about the issues of the day and civil unrest and what it means and the deep injustices and inequality that we're seeing here. Tell us about the conversations first you're having internally, and then maybe expand to some of the folks that you're talking to, as Carol said, the leaders in the world.
Well, on Friday we had our community of people who were of color on the phone, and one young man was talking about how he'd been apprehended by police unfairly, and another, African-American woman has brothers, and she wonders whether they're going to come home at night, and, it's just surreal. And I've made a commitment for Edelman that we're going to offer money for anybody who's a person who interested in vice president up to go on boards of local NGOs that are actually serving in distressed communities. I think that's important. And also we're going to double our purchases from minority-owned small business. Because, again, I want to get people back to work. I think that's the key point in all of this. We can't have this be an anti-capitalism moment. The idea of community versus capitalism is such a false choice. And I want people to recognize that business is the best hope here, not government. And that if we can get stores in communities and training centers and help people, get skills, then we're going to really be much better off.
This mirrors exactly what John Hope Bryant said to us at Operation Hope. And he said, ultimately is you need to have companies, speak with their money, with their dollars, what they decide to spend money on, whether it's minority-owned businesses, as part of their supply chain, whether it's creating internships that provide jobs for minorities. He said, this is a poverty problem, and that's how you, Richard, ultimately fix it.
Well, Carol, I love the idea.